film industry.
She was going to build it bigger and better than anybody else in California.
She had this team of investors who were all these Hollywood moguls who were going to come in and build this thing in Dixon.
Carpenter says the new studio will provide thousands of high-paying jobs to this community of just under 20,000 residents.
The city manager and the mayor at the time were all in. They thought this was the greatest thing that was ever going to happen to Dixon, and they were going to be the ones who brought it home.
There were opportunities for small businesses in town to ramp up their business due to filmmakers being in town and visiting restaurants or, other stores.
They talked about how great it was going to be to have movie stars in town, Tom Cruise coming through, Robert De Niro.
At a Dixon City Council meeting in March 2013, Carpenter announces that her company, Morningview LLC, has successfully secured the land necessary to officially begin the project.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We did it. We got 300 acres. It is time for Morningview to move forward. Please, it is time for Morningview to move forward. Please, I'm technically 16 and a half to get here, and 33 individuals, and everybody's put every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears into this company.
But Carissa Carpenter's grand statement isn't exactly the triumph it appears to be. According to federal authorities, her presentation is just the latest chapter in a decades-long con.
Ms. Carpenter's penchant for theatrics made her almost one-of-a-kind fraudster, at least.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
During my career as a prosecutor.
I don't think there's any question she was a con artist.
Dixon is just more of Hollywood and making herself rich in the process.
She had this unbelievable ability to tap into people's dreams.
She would offer all kinds of stories about potential financiers. One of them was supposed to be someone that was related to the Habsburg family.
She had told us, I think on several occasions, that she was a child star of some kind.
It's true that Carpenter has some kind of ties to Hollywood, but separating fact from fiction is a tricky proposition.
Carissa Carpenter is a very complicated woman. We trailed her for years.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
And I still don't think I have her figured out.
In the mid-1990s, Michael Raniero is a veneur and aspiring actor. By chance, he meets Carissa Carpenter on a casting call.
I first met Carissa sort of on a dare from my wife to go out and be an actor. There was a casting call that she saw in the paper seeking actors for upcoming film projects. So I went, and that's when I met Carissa.
At the time, Carissa Carpenter runs a casting agency. He says she helps him land some bit parts in films and television series.
She got me in a TV movie with Cheryl Ladd called Tangled Web. She got me in the Cameron Crowe film Almost Famous. She put me in a movie with John Travolta and Edward O'Neill called Lucky Numbers.
Carpenter tells clients she has an extensive Hollywood background.
She claimed that she was the youngest child actress for the William Morris agents. At some point, she'd had an
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
accident, and so she had to switch from acting to being an agent.
In the 1990s, Raniero says Carpenter's agency is well known in Northern California and works with a number of respectable Hollywood studios. Carissa Carpenter lives in an exclusive gated community in the Sacramento suburb of Granite Bay. Raniero says he's blown away when he visits the home.
The home that she bought here in Los Lagos was probably a $4 million home.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
She had some cred.
Kimberly West is a neighbor of Carissa's in Granite Bay.
James Everett. And so that's how we met.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Carissa Carpenter lands her neighbor's walk-on roles in a few movies and TV shows.
Dr. Quinn, medicine woman. In fact, someone came up one time and said, "Are you Jane Seymour?" I'm like, no. She's in that tent over there.
Around this time, Carpenter tells her friends that she wants to take her career to the next level. She has a dream of building her own movie studio in Northern California.
She's pretty dynamic. She'd come across like, we're going to have the sound stages and it's going to be, like a Universal studio along with the sound stages.
Kimberly says her husband, Everett Parsons, is especially intrigued by the proposal.
He came from Texas, so he really loved cowboy movies. He just got really excited about the whole thing, more than I did.
Everett Parsons is newly retired. After a career working for the department store Montgomery Ward, he recently took a buyout from the company. Kimberly says Carissa Carpenter takes a special interest in her husband when she learns of his financial situation.
I know she was really pushing it when Everett got his buyout, and she started enticing him to get more involved.
Michael Raniero says Carissa Carpenter also pitches him on the movie studio.
So her pitch to me was, well, first it was very secret. Can't let this out. We have the opportunity here to bring Hollywood to Northern California and do so on a grand scale.
The dream isn't that far-fetched. Los Angeles may be the center of the world's film industry, but in the 1990s, Hollywood begins to make inroads north of the border.
Vancouver, obviously, was a location that was highly desired. It was actually a relatively short plane flight. You could tell that there was a tipping point happening.
Carissa Carpenter has a grand plan to keep the movie business in the Golden State.
And she said she had done a study in 1994 where they showed the lack of space in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, and the wait lists of people. Sometimes productions were waiting, 2, 3, 4 years to have a soundstage to create their film.
Carpenter says with the right plan, they could make millions.
So she made a pitch to me, and that's when I wrote my first check for $50,000. I said I wanted in, and so I got in. She gave me my stock, and that was that.
Michael Raniero and Everett Parsons helped form a board of directors for Carissa's new project, Declaration Studios. Raniero says the project has approximately 20 initial investors. Carpenter claims many are big-name Hollywood players who prefer to remain anonymous.
She had said that George Lucas was involved in some way. He was going to bring his clout into the project. She was very, very vague about all of that.
He says Carissa Carpenter is also willing to put her money where her mouth is.
She had said she had put in close to $4 million at that point in time.
Next on American Greed, the Declaration Studios group is ready to put their plans into action. But unforeseen circumstances derail the project.
Anytime she was backed into a corner, she would say that she was having open heart surgery. It was hard to keep track of what all the health problems were.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Trouble, the money, it would be fantastic. I also need your guidance.
Sean's got them covered.
I'm seriously considering investing.
The biggest takeaway for me is that I can do it.
What an incredible transformation.
The Deep, Chicago. All new tomorrow, 10 Eastern. CNBC. Get yours.
Uh-oh, there you go. Slow slicing fruits, veggies, and those stinky onions that bring you to tears. But not anymore. Introducing NutriChopper, the compact handheld speed slicer that cuts up to 10 times quicker than a knife. Watch. You can have one slice or 10 perfect slices at once. Amazing! You can just julienne, or you can bundle slice julienne sticks. At Lightning Super Chopper, you can slice the entire onion, or mince a mound of onions and never have time for tears. Why slice a single apple wedge when you can wedge it all in one snap? NutriChopper comes with the razor-sharp interchangeable stainless steel blades you need to make all of the cuts you want, and all incredibly quick. Chop thick slices, chop thin slices, chop cubes, chop sticks, and wedge whole fruits and vegetables in just 1 second. Slice it and cook it right in the pan, right on your stove. Chop and slice right into the pot for a family-sized stew with no mess. Snap and slice a fruit salad for the kids right into the bowl in seconds. Slice up a healthy salad for a quick and easy meal on the go. Cube meats and cheeses quick, in a snap. And NutriChopper comes with a perfect portion container and fresh-keeping lid so you can slice it, seal it, and store it all in one. To clean, simply rinse or rack it in the dishwasher. Then lock it to store it safely in a drawer. And now the NutriChopper with the thin slice, thick slice, wedge, and cube blades, and the slice and store container and lid, a value of over $40, is yours for just $19.99. But wait, order now and we'll even pay the shipping for you. You get the complete NutriChopper set with blades and container with lids, all for just $19.99 with free shipping. Here's how to order.
To order, call 1-800-257-9942 or go online at NutriChopper.com. That's 1-800-257-9942 or go to NutriChopper.com. Order now.
Do you worry about going to the dentist? Well, relax. The Carefree Dental Card is now available in your area. Call the number on your screen and we'll send your actual card at no cost today. With the Carefree Dental Card, you go to the dentist whenever you need and you instantly pay a lot less. The Carefree Dental Card is just $15.95 a month. So call now and make going to the dentist carefree.
Call 1-800-478-0809 to receive your free Carefree Dental Card information.
Life Room by Four Seasons, where outdoor living meets future technology. No matter your style or budget, Four Seasons has got you covered. Simple shade from the sun? Covered. Outdoor dining in style? Covered. Need additional living space? Oh yeah, that too. Call today and arrange your free design consultation. Four Seasons, we've got you covered.
The Profit, an inside look, all new tonight, 10 Eastern.
Carissa Carpenter has her executive team in place, and by 1999 is in search of the perfect location for her dream movie project, Declaration Studios.
She, I think, really believed that she was going to do something amazing.
Carpenter is the project's chief executive officer.
Carissa, in stature, she only stands maybe slightly north of 5 feet tall. So she's not super tall. She's a bundle of energy.
She comes off very intelligent, very dynamic. She liked being in the limelight.
The group sets its sights on vacant land just east of Sacramento. On vacant land just east of Sacramento.
There was a property in El Dorado Hills that was exactly what she wanted. Huge tract of land out there.
And she had one of the biggest developers.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
We have in town helping her to look over the land. He told me.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
That he had heard George Lucas had flown in twice on his helicopter to look the property over.
Over the next year, the group takes steps to secure the land rights.
Chance to get more shares and increase my...
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
My ownership? Of course. I'm in. I see everything that's happening. This is going to close quickly. I can feel it.
Everett Parsons puts in a couple $100,000 of his own.
No, I knew money was really tight because he'd given most of it to her, as he called, investing in that project.
But the project is spending a lot of money.
She had attorneys involved. She had accountants involved. She had architects involved. She always paid top dollar for the advice that she was getting.
Carissa Carpenter's personal expenses are also extensive. Expenses such as stays at the finest hotels, designer clothing, even horses.
If you are giving an investment, that's for capital, right? Not for the owner of that business to, live in luxury hotels.
We had advised her, look, spend it however you like. But when you ask for reimbursement from the company for something that might not quite be a business expense, that's not quite how you do it, because that can be questioned.
She also likes to travel.
She traveled a lot to Europe. She would often use that as an excuse or a lure for investors, telling them that she had financiers in Europe who were going to fund the project. But really, she was just using investor money to fund her lifestyle.
Kimberly West says that she and her husband, Everett Parsons, accompanied Carissa on one trip to London.
We had a beautiful dinner with the Lloyds in London. They brought out some high-end $400 bottles of wine. I said, well, we paid for that anyways. But we had this lovely dinner by the London Bridge.
Divorces her husband, ditches Granite Bay, and sets her sights on Southern California.
When she was negotiating one of the deals, she was staying at the Beverly Hilton at that time. She was taking meetings and meeting with investors and people. And so she said she had to be down there.
Everett Parsons declines an on-camera interview with American Greed, but tells us on the phone that he personally pays for her weeks-long stay at the Beverly Hilton. He even gives Carissa his wife's car.
I mean, he even gave her my Mercedes. I mean, he'd be paying, next thing I know, he's paying her phone bills and the rent, and I know he's paying her phone bills and the rent and
nickel bills.
She had every ailment imaginable, from heart to cancer, to things I've never heard of.
She told us on several occasions she'd had a hysterectomy, and I think you only get to have one of those.
In an exclusive interview with American Greed, Carpenter insists her medical issues are legitimate.
My medical issues are consistent and have been since 1991. I've had 51 major events since 1991. So I have worked through and continued to work regardless, even if I was in the hospital.
She also disputes the accusation that she misused investor funds.
No, that's not true. Let me explain. I sold and loaned on a portion of my percentage of stock. Now, when you're doing a private placement memorandum, you can borrow money or loan on money on your personal stock.
In late 2000,
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
We have Eldorado Hills site, allegedly environmental problems.
Eldorado Hills, we hit asbestos and serpentine rock. That killed us. We couldn't go any farther. So we backed out of the land.
It was at that point where costs started rising. So to get that abated, the cost of the project was starting to increase.
But the group is in luck. Next on American Greed, Carissa Carpenter quickly lines up a new location.
She had the land together. She had the people together. She thought that the financiers would come in, say this is perfect, and we'd be off to the races.
Did you know TuneIn doesn't just live here on your smart speaker? From the audio that moves you to the audio that gets you moving. Soundtrack your every movement with the free TuneIn app. Available on your phone or tablet. Download TuneIn on the App Store today.
This is our last chance to profit and
So how many houses do you have? 13.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
With a laser light therapy that's been clinically proven to treat hair loss and regrow thicker, healthier hair. It's called the Capillus laser cap.
Laser therapy is an FDA-cleared treatment for hair loss. What laser therapy does, it reboots that blood supply. It reestablishes blood flow, oxygenation. It's a very effective treatment for hair loss.
Using the cap is very simple. I sit pretty much right here, watch TV, and I have it on. It's completely comfortable. You forget you have it on.
Do something about it. Don't wait, because the longer you wait...
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Go. Halfway there, just hit a 5-day streak.
We did not wake up to be mediocre today, Peloton.
It's just another meeting.
Come on. You didn't wake up to be mediocre.
Think you need to buy expensive skincare products to see dramatic results? Try Olay Skincare. Just 1 jar of microsculpting cream has the hydrating power of 5 jars of a prestige cream, which helps plump skin cells and visibly smooth wrinkles, while new Olay Retinol 24 provides visibly smoother, brighter skin. For dramatic skincare results, try Olay, and now receive 25% off your purchase at Olay.com. Brand power helping you buy better.
Having an idea for a business was easy, but without the right team and it's just an idea. That's why I use NetSuite.
NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/grow.
Beautiful, but support the leg. When I started Cobra Kai, the lack of control over my business made me a little intense. But now I practice a different philosophy. QuickBooks helps me get paid, manage.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties. We have
cash flow and run payroll. And now I'm back on top with Koala Kai. Dad! Hey! More mercy.
Save over 40.
After an initial setback, Carissa Carpenter has a new location for her dream studio, just north of Sacramento in Sutter County. She even gets a full-page spread in the local newspaper.
And I'll never forget the picture. It was on the front page of the Sacramento Bee. And it showed her in the middle of the Sutter property with an umbrella, and it said Dreamer on it. She was so happy with that article.
She described this Disneyland-like village she was going to build with a studio on this farmland.
Carpenter tells the paper that the project has major backers.
She said that she could get the White House on the phone to clear any hurdles. She could get George Bush on the phone.
But the excitement is short-lived. Just like the El Dorado Hills project, there seems to be a problem. Carissa tells her board she needs more money to see the project through.
We were in contract to buy the property. When she signed the contract,
the station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
And then 6 months later, $150,000 was due as good faith to continue the transaction.
Michael Raniero contributes another $50,000 to keep the dream alive. Other board members put up the remaining money.
If we hadn't have done that, we would have lost the Sutter property. So we were forced into it, in my perspective.
Raniero says he drops a total of $150,000 into Declaration Studios. Everett Parsons tells American Greed he invests over $400,000.
He just ran out of money. We had no more money to give her. He ran out of money. He kept going until it was gone.
Despite their investments, the Declaration Studio in Sutter County falls apart when the board says Carissa Carpenter fails to close the deal.
When we lost that last deal, then things got really weird. Things got real.
Her board of directors got wind of the fact that she was spending money extravagantly, and they confronted her on it.
And we all resigned on the same day. The whole board left on the same day.
And then she disappeared. The planning people in Sutter County said, yeah, she was going through the permit process and then vanished.
Late in 2001, Carissa surprisingly resurfaces almost 3,000 miles away in South Carolina. But her dream has changed slightly. She tells a new group of potential investors that she wants to build an animation studio that will rival the Walt Disney Corporation.
She went to South Carolina. She managed to meet with the governor of South Carolina to discuss building a movie studio there.
Carpenter is a special guest at
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties. We have
dinner parties and is given a helicopter tour across the state to scout locations for her studio.
And they wined and dined her there because there was this California woman who's going to build a movie studio in South Carolina. It was going to be great.
But the South Carolina project falls apart when local officials say Carissa Carpenter fails to make down payments and misses deadlines.
The heat was really turned up on her because the people that she was dealing with in South Carolina were not like me where, I made a bad decision, time to move on. They felt that they were wrong. They felt that they were misled.
And then that project fizzled, disappeared.
Next on American Greed, Carissa Carpenter's scheme has unexpected consequences.
Anyway, I just can't take it anymore.
I was shocked. I was devastated.
Shark Tank, tonight starting at 8 Eastern. CNBC, get yours.
For drug-free sinus and allergy relief, experience Navage.
This time of year, I get so stuffed up, but Navage flushes my sinuses so I can breathe again.
Navage uses powered suction to flush out allergens, germs, mucus, and dirt.
My doctor recommends Navage to breathe better through my nose, and it works. Congestion's gone, and I feel great.
And Navage is so much easier than a neti pot.
Trusted by happy noses everywhere, Navage is nature's decongestant. Online and at these fine retailers.
Rising energy costs are frustrating. Electricity rates continue to increase, and there's no relief in sight. It's also smart to prepare for power outages that can leave you in the dark. You need a solution that will help you save money, prepare for power outages, and help the environment. Introducing the Generac Power Cell, a battery storage system that harnesses the power from the sun to help reduce your electric bill and provide backup power during utility power outages.
With the battery storage solution, we're saving about $450 a month.
PowerCell's revolutionary technology captures and stores electricity either from solar panels or the electrical grid. It allows you to use stored energy during peak demand times when electricity costs are high, which helps reduce your electric bill, saving you money. And when a power outage occurs, PowerCell is ready to supply backup power to your home. PowerCell's modular design allows for easy customization for any home or budget. And PowerCell is backed with a 10-year limited warranty.
It was a simple installation, very neatly installed. It was done very quickly and efficiently. Since installing our power system, we've been experiencing a savings of $1,500 a year.
Generac has been a trusted provider of backup power solutions since 1959 and provides 24/7 customer support.
The battery storage solution in combination with the solar permit.
Special financing is available with low monthly payment options. You will likely qualify for tax credits and energy rebates, which could save you up to 30%, adding to the savings you'll enjoy over time with PowerCell. Call now to schedule a free in-home assessment. The call is free, the assessment is free. Generac's home energy monitoring system, a home assessment. The call is free, the assessment is free. Generac's home energy monitoring system, a $300 value. With PowerView, easily keep tabs on your energy consumption, monitor your battery usage, and track your savings. Don't wait. Call or go online now. PowerCell. Savings powered by the sun.
Do you worry about going to the dentist? Well, relax. The Carefree area. Call the number on your screen and we'll send your actual card at no cost today. With the Carefree Dental Card, you go to the dentist whenever you need and you instantly pay a lot less. The Carefree Dental Card is just $15.95 a month. So call now and make going to the dentist carefree.
Call 1-800-478-0809 to receive your free Carefree Dental Card information kit.
Life Room by Four Seasons, where outdoor living meets future technology. No matter your style or budget, Four Seasons has got you covered. Simple shade from the sun? Covered. Outdoor dining in style? Covered. Need additional living space? Oh yeah, that too. Call today and arrange your free design consultation. Four Seasons, we've got you covered.
After the failures of the El Dorado and Sutter County projects, the financial situation is tense.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
I was getting pretty upset financially trying to hold the fort myself. So I was getting pretty upset with him, like, what a waste. You know, he worked so hard his whole life.
But what happens next is even more unexpected. One afternoon in 2002, Kimberly West is stunned when her husband fails to pick her up from work.
I didn't know where he was. My daughter came and got me. She took me home and we just chatted for a long time. And I'm like, where is he?
She sees there's a message on her answering machine.
I'm sorry, we're not talking in person. But anyway, I just can't take it anymore. I'm going to Texas.
I was so... I couldn't believe it. I was like...
Kimberly says her husband leaves due to his financial setbacks. Everett Parsons tells FBI investigators that his investments with Carpenter cost him his marriage.
I was devastated. First thing that went through my mind, I said, besides him being my husband, I thought, I just lost my best friend.
The couple eventually divorced. As for Carissa Carpenter, by 2004, she set her sights on a new location south of Sacramento.
She was purporting to build a $3.49 billion city, essentially. It was going to have a movie studio, it was going to have golf courses, it was going to have hotels.
The River Islands development is an actual massive planned community. The River Islands development is an actual massive planned community just outside of Stockton.
There was only one problem with that deal, is that she had no connection to the River Islands project whatsoever.
She says the executive team does initially take meetings with Carissa Carpenter in 2004.
And that's when she approached us about putting a movie studio in the business park, which would have brought lots of jobs and lots of fame. And so we were definitely eager to talk to her.
Well, everyone in my team, including my lawyers, had tons of meetings with these people.
But the proposed deal falls through when Carpenter's actions once again fail to match her rhetoric.
She would always miss dates by, being in the hospital, or she had a strange disease that was rare. And when things would come up that she would have to provide some financing or come up with some of the cash that we had agreed to, just never happened.
However, Carissa Carpenter is determined to see her dream through. Over the next few years, federal authorities say it's a business plan.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Carpenter was really adept at taking real work that was being done by real companies and purloining it and making it part of her scheme.
Well, this is really interesting. So over the years, Carissa apparently put together 2 marketing brochures. There are definitely maps and pictures from the project that she took off our website.
Carpenter's brochures make it seem like the River Islands project is her vision. She tells people that she drops $123 million of her own money into the development.
She's absolutely making false statements about how much money she's obtained, and what's included in these documents is completely fraudulent about any ownership.
To fund her latest project, federal authorities say she looks outside of California. Over the next 6 years, she finds a trove of willing investors in Utah.
It's my understanding that she had a connection with Utah brokers, and they were looking for an investment for their clients. And Ms. Carpenter happily supplied them with tales of this development and even offered stock in her make-believe company.
Eric Fry is one of the Utah investors. He says he first encounters Carpenter during a pitch meeting in a hotel around 2006.
So we go down there, and she's there, of course, and, it's all about her and her childhood and how she was the only blue-eyed blonde in all of Japan, so they just ate her up.
Fry says she's persuasive.
She claimed she was going to own the utility districts and get us, every time a toilet flushed, we'd get paid. Every time a light turned on, we were going to make money off of that.
Fry says he takes out a home equity loan and invests $125,000. Authorities say Carpenter raises over $1 million from the Utah Investment Group.
One of the big spending sprees was right after she collected the money out of Salt Lake. There were diamonds, there were fancy dogs.
There was one boyfriend she had, and she promised him that once the company got going, he was going to get a Maserati.
A few investors actually make the trip to California to see their investment in person.
I had a gentleman from Utah who showed up at our front door, and he basically walked in and said, "Hey, I'm an owner, show me the land." And so I chatted with him and said, "What do you mean you're an owner? We don't have any outside investors in our project." But he was a little dismayed when he left my office.
The Utah Investment Group says they tried to confront Carpenter, but she spends numerous excuses and eventually vanishes. The River Islands executives say they send Carpenter numerous cease and desist letters and even contact the FBI.
So I had some contact with the FBI, and I told them about what Carissa was doing.
Next on American Greed, a little digging into Carissa's past uncovers a lot of dirt.
We found a series of liens, a vet bill that hadn't been paid. She just didn't pay her bills.
Carissa Carpenter didn't just lie to investors, she lied to FBI agents. To learn more, go to americangreed.cnbc.com. Want inside information from the show? Join the Greed Social Network. Follow us on Instagram and like us on American Greed's Facebook page. We'll be right back.
Right before this happened, I quit a full-time job.
And I cashed out my 401k. I put this together on my own.
Starting at 8 Eastern.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
CNBC, get yours.
This feels like a high school art project. Pause. This will go down as the worst scene in the history of The Prophet.
Literally thought we lost the deal with you. This is our last chance.
The Prophet, an inside look. All new tonight, 10 Eastern. CNBC, get yours.
Day 1, 50 Peloton rides to start the year. Here we go.
Don't stop here, Peloton. Remember why you started.
Halfway there, just hit a 5-day streak.
What's that mean?
It means Daddy didn't quit.
I don't get it.
Almost 50 rides. Boom!
We did not wake up to be mediocre today, Peloton.
Okay, it's just another meeting.
Come on. You didn't wake up to be mediocre.
You want a fresh-smelling home, but some air fresheners use heavy, overwhelming scents. Try Febreze One, a range of innovative air fresheners with no heavy perfumes that you can feel good about using in your home to deliver a light, natural-smelling freshness. Febreze One neutralizes stale, stuffy odors and releases a subtle hint of fragrance, like bamboo or lavender and eucalyptus. To eliminate odors with no heavy perfumes, try Febreze One. Brand power helping you buy better.
This is an important message. If you walk with a traditional cane, you could be causing crippling pain. Researchers have discovered that traditional canes force you to walk hunched over, head down, and unstable, which creates debilitating back, neck, and joint pain. Take your next step upright, secure, and with less pain with the Campbell Posture Cane, the ingenious walking cane that allows you to walk more upright, changing your line of sight so you look forward instead of down. You'll be perfectly balanced, safe, secure, and more comfortable when you walk.
With the Campbell Posture Cane, I've got more confidence and I see everything around me and I love it.
I feel that it gives me more support and I don't have to worry about
falling.
The secret is in the revolutionary Campbell handle that takes the pressure off your shoulder and wrist, placing you in a natural, upright, pain-free position. And the Campbell posture cane comes with this 360-degree traction tip that stands next to you. Plus, it helps you easily get up and out of chairs and safely navigate sidewalks and stairs.
The Campbell posture cane works by supporting the strength of your body using biomechanical engineering to dramatically improve your posture, help you move easier, and feel less pain.
And the Campbell posture cane comes with 12 different height adjustments to customize the fit. Plus, it's lightweight and sturdy, making it easy to carry with you.
The Campbell posture cane has given me my freedom back.
During this special TV introduction, you can get your Campbell posture cane with the revolutionary Campbell handle and stand-up stability tip for the factory direct price of just $39.99. But to make this the most stand-up offer on TV, it comes with the Campbell Gold Medallion money-back guarantee. Call or go online to CampbellCane.com. That's CampbellCane.com. That's CampbellCane.com.
Call 1-800-878-4810. Again, that's 1-800-878-4810 or go online to CampbellCane.com. Order now.
After the River Islands debacle, Carpenter resurfaces in the East Bay, Vallejo, California, in 2010. She pitches her movie studio for Mare Island, a former naval base that's been vacant for over a decade.
Vallejo was a town with severe financial problems. They'd been in bankruptcy. And so she came to town and said, I'm going to build this project.
Once again, Carpenter lines up legitimate development teams and architects for her dream project.
So a lot of times what would happen with these companies is they would do some preliminary work with the hope that someday, if the project actually came to fruition, they would get a large payout at the end. What Ms. Carpenter would do was make it appear that they were substantially involved.
The feds say Carpenter once again misses crucial deadlines.
No one would be willing to move forward because they had reached a point where simply they needed to see the money. It was time to put up or shut up. And so Ms. Carpenter would then move off to another location, telling her investors that something had happened, but she had found, the next golden location.
In 2013, that golden...
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
The farming community just west of Sacramento.
And it really hit with a bang because people always, I think a lot of Dixonites have big hopes of development coming to Dixon, like a major industry or something like that.
Has written a book about Carissa Carpenter's grand plans for Dixon.
Carissa Carpenter knew how to push buttons to get people to react here in the city. There were promises of jobs for a lot of local people.
She had real solid members of her team. Her lawyer was a former legislator here, the head of the state Republican Party. These were real players.
Carissa tells officials that she needs 300 acres in Dixon before her plans can move forward.
They spent a lot of time trying to convince landowners to sell or initially to sign letters of intent.
American Greed reaches out to several Dixon city officials about their interactions with Carpenter, but they decline comment.
We uncovered no evidence that Ms. Carpenter took any real steps to purchase the property. In fact, those involved said it became really obvious that this was not a legitimate or serious effort to buy land, despite what she was telling the city council and others.
During this time, Sacramento Bee journalist Margie Lundstrom says she receives an anonymous tip from a Dixon city official.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties. We apologize for the inconvenience. Your program will return in a few short moments. Please stand by. The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
I remember when I got the original tip saying something isn't right here. $2.8 billion.
Husband and wife reporting team.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties. We have
dig into Carissa Carpenter's background.
The more we looked, the more odd it seemed, and I found a court file in Los Angeles involving the sale of a $18.5 million Beverly Hills mansion to her, in which, she never paid for the mansion. And so once I read those documents, I thought, okay, there's something here.
According to their investigation, Carpenter is a serial grifter.
A default car loan, an eviction notice, file after file after file with her not paying her bills. A picture was starting to develop.
The reporters identify at least 19 tax liens and dozens of civil actions against Carpenter over the past 20 years. She owes over $50,000 to a dentist in Beverly Hills.
And everywhere I looked, there was another case against her involving furniture she hadn't paid for, or cosmetic surgeries she hadn't paid for, or bounced checks. And at some point we thought, well, we need to get to her and ask her about this, because at the time she was telling Dixon that she was going to build this massive multi-billion-dollar studio.
In the spring of 2013, Sam Stanton lands an interview with Carissa Carpenter.
So I drove to Los Angeles to interview her, and I thought, well, I'll be going to her movie studio, or somewhere in Hollywood, presumably. And instead, we met at a TGI Fridays in Simi Valley.
Stanton says Carpenter thinks the interview is another puff piece on her latest venture. But the interview quickly turns serious.
I spent quite a bit of time asking her about the plans and the project and her investors. And after about an hour, I switched gears and said, tell me about these bills you don't pay and these checks that bounce and these court cases against you.
And I'm honest and honorable, and I'm a good woman. And everybody that's been with this program and this project from day one has stayed with me.
Stanton asks Carpenter about the $50,000 she owes to the Beverly Hills dentist.
There's a case pending against you now. Right.
My teeth all broke from falling and cracked open all my teeth in my mouth. And he didn't finish the work. And I had 4 abscesses that went into an infection into my heart. So I have not been able to get that finished. And when I get well, I'll pay up.
Stanton says Carissa Carpenter has an excuse for everything.
Yeah, her identity had been stolen. She was working with the Secret Service. She was working with Interpol. There was always an excuse.
Carpenter says the River Islands fiasco was just a misunderstanding.
We were in the process of trying to finance it, and everything went sideways when the real estate market cratered. We lost our financing, which is why we didn't end up closing.
In 2013, the reporter's story about Carissa Carpenter and her shady past is featured on the front page of the Sacramento Bee. In Dixon, the piece hits hard.
The Sacramento Bee articles came like a bombshell.
Many residents don't want to believe what the reporters find. They blame the newspaper for trying to sabotage the proposed movie studio and Dixon's chance at millions.
The reporting was very accurate. It was very detailed, very in-depth. But even so, there were some in the community who said, oh, it was a hit job. They're out to get her.
Next on American Greed, Carissa Carpenter does whatever it takes to stay out of prison.
She claimed, for example, that she needed money to join an order of knights that would provide her a title of baroness.
And if she could just get this cloak...
So how many houses do you have? 13. Nothing like going big at number 14. Having loans on 14 properties is absolutely insane.
The Deed, Chicago. All new tomorrow, 10 Eastern. CNBC. Get yours.
Are you stuck with a low credit score causing you to be denied credit? Then do what Terrence did and go to creditrepair.com.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back.
Knowing that somebody's working for me and fixing my credit and allowing me to still be free to do what I need to do is actually a time saver.
Don't wait. Visit creditrepair.com to see how you can get started with a free credit evaluation and game plan.
Here's a razor that works differently. The Gillette Skin Guard. It has a guard between the blades that helps protect skin. The Gillette Skin Guard.
I'm feeling good.
Make the most of your business card with Vistaprint.
I'm feeling good.
And now, get free shipping on all business cards. Any style, any quantity. With promo code BCNOW. Own the now with Vistaprint.
For drug-free sinus and allergy relief, experience Navage.
This time of year, I get so stuffed up, but Navage flushes my sinuses so I can breathe again.
Navage uses powered suction to flush out allergens, germs, mucus, and dirt.
My doctor recommends Navage to breathe better through my nose, and it works. Congestion's gone, and I feel great.
And Navage is so much easier than a neti pot.
Trusted by happy noses everywhere, Navage is nature's decongestant.
I'm crazy simple. All you have to do is post a picture, add a description, add a price, and you're pretty much good to go. Right now I'm selling Air Jordans and Nikes and Adidas, anything really performance related or style related.
Download the free Poshmark app now.
No matter what I wore, I worried someone might see my bladder leak underwear. So I switched to Always Discreet Boutique. Its shape-hugging threads smooth out the back, so it fits better than Depend. And no one notices. Always Discreet.
We are the Dreamers. We come in a variety of colors
and styles,
a variety of sizes.
We come in different patterns
and different materials.
We are the Dreamers.
Achieving your dream can take work.
I just wanted to do a career.
But don't give up.
Changing my life.
Don't ever give up.
Ignore the haters.
They didn't believe that I can do it, and I just proved them that I can.
Independence University.
IU is an online college.
Education online for a better life offline.
So your campus is wherever you want it to be.
Take classes when you want to take classes.
At IU, you receive the tools you need at no extra cost.
Even a brand new laptop and tablet to use in school.
You're going to keep that laptop and tablet when you graduate.
And IU's career services work really hard to help you get a job.
You've got to have dreams. Independence University.
Education online for a better life offline.
1-800-967-1179. 1-800-967-1179.
The Profit, an inside look. All new tonight, 10 Eastern.
After the publication of the Sacramento Bee expose, federal authorities begin an investigation of Carissa Carpenter.
What was revealed is she's just who really had no substance, but was all about. What was revealed is she's just who really had no substance, but was all about selling a dream and getting lots of people's money to fund her out of control lifestyle.
And that appears to have been her entire career. We interviewed witnesses back to the 80s, so seems to have been quite a long-running scheme.
In 2014, federal prosecutors in Sacramento Carissa Carpenter with a 32-count indictment, charging her with mail fraud, wire fraud, and making a false statement to a government agent.
She was lying on documents and then sending those documents either in emails to folks in other states to perpetuate the scheme.
The government officially says Carpenter pockets over $3.5 million.
That was official. That's the official kind of number. There's certainly a chance that it could be more.
Federal authorities say that Carpenter spends
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
And that she never actually invests any of her own money into the projects.
She would live a fairly luxurious lifestyle, and it was essentially this was her only business and only source of income.
We identified numerous instances of investor money being used to pay off or down credit cards. She lived kind of always on the edge with respect to her finances.
Federal investigators contact George Lucas. The Hollywood legend submits a declaration to the court saying he's never even met Carpenter.
We were able to obtain a declaration from Mr. Lucas who attested that he was not involved in Ms. Carpenter's project at all, had no intention of being involved.
After her indictment, Carpenter begins making regular court appearances, but many devolves.
Ms. Carpenter, at least in my opinion, attempted to faint 3 times at 3 different proceedings.
One time an ambulance came and went up to the 14th floor of the courthouse, whatever it was, put her on a stretcher, took her down to the first floor, put her in an ambulance.
One time, she tries to dodge prosecution by becoming a member of the Knights Templar, the ancient and mysterious religious order.
She had somehow became convinced that she could escape prosecution by becoming a baroness. To become a baroness, she had to purchase a cloak. And if she could just get this cloak and become Lady Carissa, as she referred to herself, she would be immune from prosecution.
After years of delays, in July of 2018, Carpenter pleaded.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties. We apologize for the inconvenience. Your program will return in a few short moments. Please stand by. The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties. We are
guilty to 2 counts of mail fraud and 1 count of lying to a government agent.
Talking about the different victims, and they were reading off names.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
We had never heard of. It's unbelievable, the amount of people.
Carpenter is incarcerated at a federal medical center in Texas. American Greed reaches out to her in prison. She tells us that she never intentionally set out to deceive investors.
I didn't steal their money. They made an investment. Could I have made better decisions? Yes. Was I responsible at the end? Because as a CEO and chairman, I am responsible.
Given the chance, Carpenter says she would have conducted business differently.
I wouldn't have trusted a lot of people. I probably would have stopped after the first city. I think the company grew, and it grew. And the larger we got, the greedier people got, and the more stars in the eyes.
Carpenter says her health is failing in prison. But if she survives, she says she has one goal.
I wish I was able to make good on my promise. And I will do everything I can with every penny I've got to make things right. I don't know how, but I'm going to try.
Many victims say they doubt that will happen. And the reviews are in on this Hollywood flop. And the only restitution investors believe they'll ever receive is the sight of Carissa Carpenter behind bars.
I feel like she got what she deserved at this point.
I still have a lot of unanswered questions, but it is really gratifying that right now she is in prison and there's, to our knowledge, nobody else turning over $150,000 to her for a movie studio that may or may not be built.
So there was just a lot of pain associated with it. She caused a lot of pain, and knowing she's in jail and in prison, I mean, yeah, I don't wish that upon anyone, but at the same time, shame on her.
This feels like a high school art project. Pause. This will go down as the worst scene in the history of The Prophet.
Literally thought we lost the deal with you. This is our last chance.
The Prophet, an inside look. All new tonight, 10 Eastern. CNBC, get yours. Shark Tank, tonight starting at 8 Eastern. CNBC, get yours.
Get ready for a Wall Street whipsaw. Stocks coming off their worst day since the financial crisis after the Dow fell more than 7% in yesterday's trade. Stock futures pointing to a Tuesday turnaround, though, as crude looks to stage a major comeback after its worst day since the first Gulf War. On lockdown, Italy taking drastic steps to help stem the spread of coronavirus. And major economic steps, what the White House is doing to prevent the U.S. economy from sinking into recession. It's Tuesday, March 10th, 2020, and Worldwide Exchange begins right now. Good morning and welcome. I'm Courtney Reagan in this morning for Brian Sullivan. What a day it's shaping up to be again today, but looking a little different than what we saw Monday. We're going to kick off this morning with a Tuesday turnaround. Dow futures are pointing higher, indicated higher by more than 900 points, 920 points at this moment. The S&P 500 indicated higher by more than 104 points, and the NASDAQ is indicated higher by 323 points. We got a lot of hours left to go till those opening bell sounds. This is coming, though, after what was the worst day for stocks since the financial crisis, with the Dow falling more than 2,000 points in a single day. The sell-off triggering the first halt to U.S. trading in 20 years. As it stands right now, all the major averages are in correction. The Dow Transports and the Russell are in bear market territory, down more than 20% from recent 52-week highs. Same thing goes for energy, financials, industrials, materials, and tech. All those sectors also in that same boat. Bonds hovering off their all-time lows, at least. The 10-year is back above 0.5%, actually getting closer to 0.7% this morning at 0.686%. 5% still sitting, though, below $33 a barrel at 32.72. Let's get a check-in on what happened overnight in Asia and around the world. Green arrows you can see there for both Shanghai, Hang Seng, Japan, as well as the early going in Europe. We have France higher by more than 3%, the FTSE 100 higher by 3%, and Germany also tacking on 3% to make up at least maybe some of those losses from yesterday. Well, this morning's Tuesday turnaround does come after President Trump said he will be meeting with Senate and House Republicans today to discuss a, quote, possible tax relief measure in response to the coronavirus slowdown.
They will be very dramatic, and we have a great economy. We have a very strong economy, but this handled it very, very well.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
I think they've done a great job. The people behind me have done a great job. So I will be here tomorrow afternoon to let you know about some of the economic steps we're taking, which will be major.
Joining me on set to help break it all down, Chris Wetzler. He's portfolio manager at Needham Growth Fund. Chris, thanks so much for being here. So at least in the early going, futures are indicating we could see a bit of a turnaround. But could investors really breathe that sigh of relief yet? Is this just a temporary pause? Because these coronavirus cases continue to stack up, and Saudi Arabia isn't reversing course on its direction for oil.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. It's not unusual for us to see these types of corrections or these moves up after big moves down like we saw yesterday. I think what investors really need to do is take a little bit of patience and not panic in this environment. And, reevaluate what are their goals, where are they? We've been actually actively deploying capital here in this marketplace, but we're not committing, oversized positions at this point. We're legging into them and we're taking our time. So for longer term, we think that the market, should recover, but we're not going to begin to call the bottom here, until we get a little more certainty as to how long this is going to last.
That seems to make sense to
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
You're taking a prudent approach to getting back in. If you're an investor with money on the sidelines, perhaps you're more of a retail investor.
Into investments over time, dollar cost averaging both in and out of positions, I think is a good strategy for many of the retail investors, because it's very hard to, say, put all your money in and then be down on a day like yesterday. It's very nerve-wracking, can certainly strike at your confidence. But if you've been doing your due diligence and excited about certain companies, or maybe you missed all the FANG move over the last bunch of years, it might be a time to, be evaluating and say, is there some money that I'd like to put in? But again, we're not calling the bottom yet. There's certainly a lot of volatility out there. I don't think the OPEC oil situation helped the situation on Friday. But that's a whole nother, war that's going on between kind of two Godzillas that really want to take back market share. And, we'll see what our government actions are, which, I think would probably be a little bit supportive to those industries.
So you're talking about taking a little bit of a leg in, sort of slowly testing the waters. You mentioned FANG. Is that where you would recommend putting
high-quality companies with long-term secular growth stories, which
is that where you would recommend putting
high-quality companies with long-term secular growth stories, which I think the retail investors, can understand. They know those names, they know those brands. That's in many cases, a pretty good strategy for retail investors. Active management, we're kind of doing the work digging down to those non-household names and seeing where we can deploy some capital there. And what we're seeing, some, actual green shoots in China. They're coming back. The factories are going back to work. The pace of which I think may be different. But we are seeing some activity there, which for the supply chain, we think are some pretty good areas. But those are really not household names where I think retail investors would know.
Some good advice early this morning. Chris Retzer, thanks for joining us here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Well, when we come back, Italy on lockdown. The country taking drastic steps to contain the world's largest outbreak outside China. We've got a live report coming up. But first, after the worst day for U.S. stocks since the 2008 financial crisis, take a look at the lost market caps for the 5 most valuable tech companies in the world. In total, more than $321 billion wiped out in a single day. Worldwide Exchange is back after this.
Plan to retire, plan to live. An annuity helps cover your essential monthly expenses. Live the life you want. Find out how an annuity can give you lifetime income at protectedincome.org.
On the next Squawk Box, navigating market turmoil, Mohamed El-Arian with a global economic forecast for investors, plus his take on the Fed's next move. Squawk Box, 6 a.m. Eastern today. Watch and listen live on the CNBC app.
The disarray is palpable. But as the Oracle of Omaha always says, be greedy when others are fearful. Just please, if you're going to buy, buy gradually on the way down. Watch or listen live on the CNBC app.
Do you worry about going to the dentist? After all, a visit to the dentist can easily cost $2,000 or more. Well, relax. The Carefree Dental Card is now available in your area. Call now and we'll send your actual card at no cost today. With the Carefree Dental Card, you go to the dentist whenever you need and you instantly pay a lot less. Activate your card and you can start using it immediately. From exams and cleanings to more expensive procedures like crowns, dentures, even braces, they're all included with the Carefree Dental Card. Say you go to the dentist today without any card and your bill is, well, ouch. Wait a minute, let's try that again. You go to the dentist today and show your Carefree Dental Card, you save $525. The Carefree Dental Card is just $15.95 a month. So call now and make going to the dentist carefree.
Call 1-800-478-0809 to receive your free Carefree Dental Card information kit. Call 1-800-478-0809 now.
To the global coronavirus outbreak now. Chinese President Xi Jinping arriving in Wuhan, China overnight to inspect efforts to control the virus spread. This is Xi's first visit to the epicenter of the global outbreak since it began back in December. Meantime, Italy's prime minister announcing drastic steps to contain the world's largest outbreak outside China. Claudio Lavagna is joining us now from Rome. Claudio, what's it like there?
Good morning, Courtney. Where it's almost deserted. I don't know whether you can see around me. I'm at the Colosseum right now, and it is one of the most crowded, usually the most crowded places, not only in Rome, but in the whole of Italy. And there is really a few people around, and mostly they are foreign tourists because of what the government has told Italians last night. As you said, the Prime Minister last night in a very dramatic press conference told all Italians, 60 million of them, to stay home unless they have a real reason to move around, like a work reason or a medical emergency. They should just stay home to prevent the spread of coronavirus. And even if they do go out, and a few are, of course, including me, for work reasons, you need to carry a self-certification that states who you are, where you're coming from, where you're going, and why. Whoever breaks the rules, well, they can incur into a fine of about $250 or even 3 months in prison, Courtney.
I was just going to ask, how is all of this being enforced? And as you mentioned, there's not a lot of people out that you can tell, so it sounds like the citizens are taking this very seriously.
They definitely are taking it seriously. I mean, usually it takes a while to move around Rome. Rome is a very chaotic city. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of people around, including, of course, a lot of tourists, even those ones have now disappeared in droves. It's so easy to move around these days. There's barely anybody around. It took me 5 minutes to get here. Usually it takes 20. Nobody stopped me because within the city, of course, there are no checkpoints. But I'm being told that if you do get out, for instance, from the city, on a train station, in train stations, there are checks. There are some policemen or the army who are asking you for the self-certification. If you don't have that piece of paper, that form, they give it to you to fill it up. There are some checkpoints, especially in the north, at the entrance of on the highway, and the entrance in several hotspots, like, for instance, Bergamo, which has the highest number of coronavirus cases per capita here in the whole of Italy. So it's fairly easy to move around in a city like Rome. Not so much if you want to get out of the city or throughout the nation, but certainly it does look like it's almost a ghost town these days, Rome at least, Courtney.
I know that we have to let you go, but very quickly, you mentioned the tourists as well. What happens if you are a tourist, you're not an Italian citizen, and you're in the country when this quarantine, this lockdown went into effect?
Well, it's absolutely fine for tourists in the sense that they can still move around because they have a reason. They are tourists and they're just here visiting. The problem for tourists is that everything is closed. I mean, galleries, the Colosseum, archaeological sites. You can't essentially go anywhere. You can go to a restaurant, but restaurants these days close at 6 o'clock in the evening. And Italians, I mean, just think of that. Italians tend to eat at 9 in the evening. So that's a problem for tourists. And we spoke to a couple of American tourists just now who were enjoying the fact that Rome is so empty, but certainly they were not enjoying the fact that they can't go in anywhere. So luckily, this is a beautiful sunny day, so they can take a long walk. But it's certainly not the Italy they were expecting when they came here, Courtney.
It's true. I guess it's not the typical Italian cultural experience. Claudio Lavanga, thank you for joining us, and stay healthy. Well, billionaire investor Steve Cohen's firm has found itself at the center of the coronavirus outbreak. An employee at Cohen's Point 72 Asset Management in New York City has tested positive for the virus. Earlier reports suggested the employee has been self-quarantined since early last week and has not come into the office since. A Point 72 spokesperson tells CNBC the company is taking precautions and preventative measures to protect its employees. They add the company has extensive continuity plans in place to make sure it can continue to operate. Well, still on deck, recession warning signs, what the price action in financials is telling our next guest about the future of the U.S. economy. Plus, a quick look at the top S&P 500 winners in the pre-market. Worldwide Exchange is back after this.
Just as important as technology, from the customer experience to the operation.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Operations that support it, it's more important than ever to activate collaboration across the C-suite.
The alliance between EY and Adobe is really focused on a common philosophy about putting the customer journey first.
Everybody needs to be thinking about the customer. That's when we transform the entire dialogue of the C-suite.
the Range Rover Evoque. The only adventure sales event is happening now.
The S&P 500, the benchmark for most U.S. equity investors. Only Sector SPDR ETFs can divide the S&P 500 into 11 investable pieces. This allows you to underweight and also overweight sectors to best meet your clients' objectives. Sector SPDRs, write your next chapter in investing. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Go to sectorspiders.com for a prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully.
In nature, and also find answers. Our search to transform farm waste into renewable natural gas led Chevron to partner with California Bioenergy, working to provide an alternative source of power for a cleaner way forward.
HSS is the most reliable place to improve your body's movement because we've been entirely focused on that for 156 years.
Our quality care is becoming more widely available, helping large populations to more reliably and efficiently prevent, diagnose, and treat musculoskeletal conditions.
Our purpose is to help people move better and perform better than any place in the world.
Welcome back. The big banks trying to bounce back this morning after the sector suffered its worst day since April 2009. Financials remain in bear market territory, down more than 26% since their most recent 52-week high. That was hit back in January. Joining me now is RJ Grant. He's managing director at KBW, a Stifel company. RJ, good morning. Thanks for being here with us. What a day yesterday for the entire market, but of course the financial sector as well. When you look at these big where rates are sitting right now, particularly the 10-year.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Albeit off the lows, but still under 0.7%. I mean, can banks really recover from this?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was clearly one for the record books. Last week we were struggling kind of with the rate cut and obviously fears around coronavirus. So we did see a good amount of selling post-rate cut. I think banks are down about 20% in the last 3 or 4 sessions. So that isn't necessarily something new. But yesterday, for the most part, we saw a bunch of selling from short sellers, from long sellers, and a bid really didn't materially develop throughout the day. And that kind of speaks to what you were talking about earlier. You have coronavirus concerns, you have low rates, and then the big new news was the oil price wars over the weekend, which was kind of felt like the final blow for the financials yesterday, especially the banks. The rates, plunged down 35, 40 basis points, and investors are starting to make the bet that a recession could potentially be near.
And so what would happen to the sector if we look at a recession and if we look at Fed intervention almost tapping out? I mean, how many more tools do they have in their toolbox? Although we are expecting another, this last one, surprise as it was, didn't do much.
Yeah, no, it didn't do much. And, lower rates, banks are not necessarily built to handle zero interest rates, as you can see in Europe and Japan. So our research department about 2 weeks ago did a piece that talked about a less adverse case for the banks, which would be 1 rate cut and slower growth, where we avoid a recession, and then a more severe approach, which would be 5 rate cuts, 50 basis point 10-year, and close to a zero interest rate policy. So I don't think many people thought we'd go to that place in 2 weeks, but this is kind of where we're at right now. So we stress tested the banks, and we feel that in a more adverse scenario, the median impact EPS could be about 25%. So I feel that a lot of the banks have kind of adjusted to that already. I'm not saying that there's not issues out there and we can't go lower, but I feel like, some of the requests we've gotten in the last couple of days for work around the banks, people want severe stress test, analysis. They want work on European and Japanese banks, which trade at 50% of book value in some cases. So we're starting to see investors really, I don't want to say push the panic button, but really prepare and hunker down for adverse scenarios in the sector.
So if you're talking about adverse scenarios, you're talking about these 2 different scenarios, the second of which more severe. You didn't think we'd get there, but it looks like we are.
Yep.
You're building in recession.
Yes. I mean, I think if you're going to go to that place in scenario 2, investors are clearly building in the recession probability. And we put a couple different analysis out there for investors to express how they feel and look at the work. And, the market is voting right now with what they feel.
And so what do you do if this is the scenario?
Yeah,
What's your recommendation?
So it's a little bit, a lot of folks are trying to compare it to the financial crisis. It's a little bit different in the sense that the banks' balance sheets are a lot more well capitalized, are a little bit more diversified, not as much exposure to the mortgage market. Even from 2016, banks have tightened up their lending standards on oil and gas and hospitality and travel. So the lending standards we feel are higher and better. So there's good capital return stories out there. There's conservative banks that have historically made good loans. So, we feel that if investors have a great opportunity right now to move to quality, because there's a lot of trophies on sale in the banking sector right now.
Wow. Well, keep us updated on everything as it develops and as these scenarios model forward. RJ, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Well, straight ahead, FundStrat's Tom Lee joins us on set. His take on the sell-off, this morning's rebound, and where he's advising clients to put money to work. Plus, we are live in our nation's capital, where President Trump just last night called for a new payroll tax cut and other relief measures in light of the outbreak. Worldwide Exchange is back after this.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Hassle of lugging your gear through the airport. With ShipSkis, you're just a few clicks away from having your skis, snowboard, and luggage shipped from your doorstep to your destination. With unrivaled pricing, real-time tracking, ShipSkis delivers hassle-free. Ship ahead and go catch those first tracks on fresh snow. ShipSkis, your skis delivered. A new kind of investor is changing things up. With an app that's changing the way we do money. Robinhood now.
Yes, the first word to any...
Robinhood now.
Yes, the first word to any adventure. But when allergies and congestion strike, take Allegra D, a non-drowsy antihistamine plus...
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
It's a powerful decongestant, so you can always say yes to putting your true colors on display. Say yes to Allegra D.
This is an historic day of trading, which did include a break.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Right now is losing money.
The Dow is within about a percentage point of bear market territory.
It is the worst coin drop for the Dow ever, down 7.8%.
Watch or listen to CNBC live on the app.
Do you worry about going to the dentist? After all, a visit to the dentist can easily cost $2,000 or more. Well, relax. The Carefree Dental Card is now available in your area. Call now and we'll send your actual card at no cost today. With the Carefree Dental Card, you go to the dentist whenever you need and you instantly pay a lot less. Activate your card and you can start using it immediately. From exams and cleanings to more expensive procedures like crowns, dentures, even braces, they're all included with the Carefree Dental Card. Say you go to the dentist today without any card and your bill is, well, ouch. Wait a minute, let's try that again. You go to the dentist today and show your Carefree Dental Card, you save $525. The Carefree Dental Card is just $15.95 a month. So call now and make going to the dentist carefree.
Call 1-800-478-0809 to receive your free Carefree Dental Card information kit. Call 1-800-478-0809 now.
This morning's best performing Dow stocks in the pre-market this morning. We've got Chevron, we've got Exxon and Apple. Chevron and Exxon Mobil up more than 6%. Apple up more than 5%. Apple, though, shed 8% just yesterday, so we still have some more ground to make up. But stay tuned. You're watching Worldwide Exchange on CNBC. We'll be right back.
right, we got to stop here first.
From smarter ATMs to after-hours video tellers, Comcast Business is connecting thousands of banks today that turns everyday transactions into extraordinary experiences.
Hi there. How are you? Do you have any lollipops in there? No, sorry.
We're helping all kinds of businesses go beyond customer expectations. How can we help you?
Yes, it's the first word of any new discovery. But when allergies attack, the excitement fades. Allegra helps you say yes with the fastest non-drowsy allergy relief and turn any half-hearted yes into an all-in yes. Allegra, live your life, not your allergies.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1 pharmacist-recommended memory support brand. You can find it in the vitamin aisle in stores everywhere. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
We can't calculate our total taxes?
Do you realize how many different taxes we pay? Sales tax, different POS systems in all 7 countries.
And online sales?
That's a whole other system. And different regulations. There's real estate credits, solar incentives.
And we have no way to integrate all that.
No, but BDO does.
People who know BDO.
Dana-Farber Cancer Institute.
Discover the PDL1 pathway.
PDL1.
They change how the world fights cancer.
Blocking the PDL1 protein
lets the immune system attack
cancer.
PDL1 transformed.
Revolutionize.
Immunotherapy.
PDL1 saved my life.
Saved my life.
Saved my life.
What we do here at Dana-Farber changes lives
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Everywhere.
A sea of red for the markets, with the Dow suffering its worst day since 2008 as coronavirus and oil fears hit a tipping point. But stocks looking to make a turnaround on this Tuesday morning, poised to regain at least some of that lost ground. Coming after President Trump floats potential fiscal relief. We have global team coverage on the moves you need to make with your money as the second half of Worldwide Exchange starts now. Good morning and welcome. I'm Courtney Reagan in this morning for Brian Sullivan. With me for this half hour, we have Fundstrat Global Advisors Managing Director Tom Lee. And before we get to Tom, we're going to kick off this second half hour with a Tuesday turnaround. Dow futures pointing higher by almost 1,000 points at this moment.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Moment in early pre-market trade. The S&P 500 indicated higher by 112 points and the Nasdaq higher by 334 points. Now, this is coming after what was the worst day for stocks since the financial crisis, with the Dow falling more than 2,000 points in just a single day. The sell-off triggering the first halt to U.S. trading in 20 years. As it stands right now, all the major averages are in correction territory. The Dow Transports and the Russell, those are in bear market territory, down more than 20% from recent 52-week highs, as is energy, financials, industrials, materials, and tech. All those sectors also there. Bonds, at least hovering off their all-time lows. The 10-year is back above 0.5%. Moving higher above 0.7% at 0.721. And energy also bouncing back in a big way.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
And right now, though, still below $33 a barrel at 32.85, but that's higher by 5.5%. from where we closed yesterday. Worldwide Exchange has your global team coverage following all of the action this morning. Matt Taylor is in Singapore. Jeff Cutmore has the early European trade in London. And our Eamon Javers is standing by in Washington with the White House response. Matt, let's start with you.
Hi there, Courtney. Asian markets staging a bounce back today. A couple of patches of red. New Zealand, as you can see here, down by about 1.7%. But hopes of course, more global fiscal stimulus to offset the virus are generally helping out these markets. We saw an average gain of around about 2%. Now, Japan was an underperformer, but did manage to stage a late day turnaround. We saw the market up by about 0.9% at the close. This was as we saw the yen weaken, now at 104.59. The Prime Minister there saying he stands ready to to implement whatever is needed to offset the impact of the virus. Gains for the China markets as well. There was green right across the screen here. As you can see, Hong Kong up by about 1.4%. The Shanghai Composite here up by about 1.8%. Inflation data, consumer prices rising by 5.2% in the month of February on year. But the factory shutdown hitting producer prices, which sank by 0.4% on year in that month. Now, the Australian market, it was the outperformer today. It was the underperformer yesterday, bouncing back by about 3% today. We did see it earlier in the day fall into bear market territory, and in fact we saw a 7% intraday move in the Australian market, but closing back up by 179 points there at the close, helped out by banking stocks in Australia today. Courtney, back to you.
Matt, thank you very much. We're going to send it over to Jeff Cutmore. He has the latest on the early action in Europe as Italy is effectively totally shut down.
Yep, you know what, Courtney, that is not having a big impact, though, on the way the European markets are trading here. That old saw, do you buy the rallies, sell the dips? Well, that's exactly what they're doing at this point. And we did expect early on that we would see gains of a little under 2%. But an hour and 30 minutes into the European trading session, and you can see that we're actually just starting to pull away from those 2% numbers. And in fact, investors are re-engaging with equities at this point in the European trading session. And the fact that we had that big news, 60 million people on lockdown in Italy, doesn't seem to have taken anything away from this rebound that we're seeing this hour in the European session. Let me just show you the sectors. That's how the indices are playing. In terms of where we see the biggest rebound this morning, as you can see, the banks and the autos are getting a jump here, but oil and gas is the biggest winner at this stage in the European recovery. We did have a little bit of news out suggesting that the Saudis are going to up production here, perhaps a way of pushing back to the Russians overnight, who said they could also increase production. But the rebound is coming in oil and gas. And very quickly, I just want to show you some specific stocks just to see if that gives you a sense of where you may go in your US session when that opens up. And it is a reflection of those same sectors again, with companies like Eni, the Italian oil business, and Renault, the French autos business, up here on Zurich. Anything to do with aeroplanes at the moment seems to be a non-starter, I think, just because people are still concerned about travel around coronavirus in Europe. Back to you, Courtney.
Absolutely. That seems to make sense to me, Jeff. Thank you. We're going to move now to Washington, where President Trump will be meeting with Senate and House Republicans today to discuss new economic stimulus in the wake of the coronavirus and related slowdowns. Eamon Javers is here with us with more. Hi, Eamon.
Yeah, Courtney, as you said, a dramatic day yesterday, and I'm told that there were two simultaneous meetings happening more or less side by side at the White House yesterday. More or less side by side at the White House yesterday. In the Oval Office yesterday, late afternoon, you had the White House economic team meeting with President Trump to gather ideas on what to do to stimulate this economy and support those people who have been hurt by coronavirus, particularly hourly wage earners who might have to take time off of work. Some real uncertainty for those folks. The White House wants to deal with that. That was one of the meetings. The other meeting was downstairs at around the same time in the Situation Room at the White House. I'm told that Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin actually toggled back and forth between the two meetings. The downstairs meeting was the Coronavirus Task Force, who later appeared on stage with the president in the White House briefing room as the president read out some new figures here on where we are in terms of the coronavirus. The president promised, here's how he described what it is he's going to be doing today.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
They will be very dramatic, and we have a great economy. We're a very strong economy, but this blindsided the world, and I think we've handled it very, very well. I think they've done a great job. The people behind me have done a great job. So I will be here tomorrow afternoon to let you know about some of the economic steps we're taking, which will be major.
So the president there promising major economic steps. Courtney, I'm told those are not finalized just yet. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Larry Kudlow, the National Economic Council director, are going to be meeting with Senate Republicans today to get a sense of what is politically possible and see where they are in terms of their support for a number of the options the White House is considering behind the scenes, Courtney.
It's going to be a pretty important announcement when we get more of those details. And Eamon, I understand there also will be a meeting between some Wall Street leaders. Do we have any more insight into that?
We do. We know the front lines of that sell-off that you saw yesterday, trying to figure out what... We do. We know the front lines of that sell-off that you saw yesterday, trying to figure out what, if anything, the White House needs to do here. I'm told that there's no specific agenda that's been circulated to those Wall Street CEOs, but we do expect to see them meeting with the president on Wednesday, Courtney.
And Eamon, we know the president obviously follows the stock market fairly closely. Has he had anything to say about yesterday's large drop and maybe even today's subsequent possible rebound?
You know, he didn't really address it yesterday. He returned from a fundraiser in Florida, and I and a number of other reporters shouted some questions to him about the stock market drop as it was happening. He didn't take any of those questions. On Twitter, he blamed the dispute between the Saudis and the Russians in the oil market for yesterday's sell-off, but he didn't take any questions on it yesterday.
Got it. Eamon, thank you very much. Keep us updated as... We're going to give you a quick look at those futures, and it does look like we are extending the early pre-market gains here with the Dow indicated higher by more than 1,000 points here at 1,050 points at this moment. S&P 500 indicated higher by 120 points, and the NASDAQ up by 354 points. This, of course, though, happens as the 10-year also bounces off its historic lows, still pretty low, but at 0.73%. We were under 0.5%. We're going to bring in Tom Lee. He's a co-founder, managing partner, and head of research at Fundstrat Global Advisors. Tom, yesterday was sort of a stomach-churning day for a lot of investors. At least right now, it looks like we could be coming back a little bit. Can we trust a rally like this?
I think investor confidence has really been shattered because we've had so many 1,000-point swings. I mean, the market's been lurching, and the move in interest rates back.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties. We
above 0.5% and the 30-year back above 1% are things that maybe give you a sense that crisis levels have dropped from 10 plus to 9. So I think in a way it's moving in the right direction.
But still, the 10-year at 0.73%. I mean, that is incredibly low. Or the 30-year just above 1%.
Yeah, it's unimaginable that the U.S. is trending towards interest rates that we've seen in countries that have had emergency interest rates, right? So I think that really highlights how scared and how dangerous markets have become and, the threat posed by Corona.
And so if we get some fiscal stimulus measures, as President Trump is suggesting that we will today, will that help? Will that stabilize things from an economic...
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
For a market standpoint, or is that not enough?
I think it's a big deal. Because if you're managing money, it takes 6 to 8 weeks. Thing that will give you confidence to keep your money and assets invested. And I think fiscal is a good way to tide this over because if we have, 1 or 2 quarters of fiscal support plus the central banks providing liquidity, it helps us get through this, what could be a speed bump or could be a recession.
The markets are really pricing in further Fed cuts. But that didn't really do much when we had the surprise Fed cut of those 50 basis points. So is that necessary? Do we need it? Should they do it?
Yeah, I'm in the camp that, the Fed needs to respond to what is happening in the rates markets. And there's a lot of pressure because before the emergency cut, the front end rates were actually higher than long-term rates. So we had a huge amount of inversion in the yield curve. And that emergency cut largely addressed it, so 90% of the curve. So I think it made sense, not from trying to stimulate the economy, but to prevent plumbing from getting worse.
And so I'm going to ask you one more question before we have to move on, but I know you're going to stick with us. So we saw a lot of action yesterday in the oil market. Yes, we're seeing a rebound here today by about 5.5%, but still, WTI under 33. We're hearing sort of this profitability point for many U.S. producers is around 50. I mean, what How closely correlated do we need to be watching both the market in oil and then the broader market for equities globally and otherwise?
Yeah. Well, the drop in oil is a disaster economically because, I mean, if you think about just credit, for instance, 11% of the high yield market is oil. So we saw a huge widening of spreads there, and it exposes the banks. That's why the banks and energy have really been the most toxic groups. And yeah, it's a problem globally because 40% of global GDP is produced by countries that produce commodities. So if oil's tanking, it's putting a lot of the world in a depression.
Something we have to keep following. And Tom, you're going to stick with us and help us do that throughout the hour. We're going to have much more. I want to make sure to remind everyone to tune in to our special coverage of what's shaping up to be really another.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties. We have
A very fast-moving day of market turmoil. A full breakdown of the trading day at 7 p.m. Eastern time only on CNBC. Well, coming up, crude oil prices crashing after that price war erupts between Saudi Arabia and Russia. Our Brian Sullivan is breaking down what this could mean for an already battered energy sector when Worldwide Exchange returns.
I was going to shut down my family bookstore, but the Indian rhinoceros saved it. In my travels through Kaziranga, I heard the story of the rhino.
50 years ago, there were only 400 rhinos. But now, there are more than 2,400.
India showed me what can happen if you don't give up, and if the Indian rhino can make a comeback.
When cuticles get cracked, you need relief that gets right to the point. Gold Bond Cracked Skin Relief, designed to precisely fill cracks, instantly soothe. 94% saw noticeable improvement. Gold Bond Cracked Skin Relief.
Don't just plan to retire, plan to live. An annuity helps cover your essential monthly expenses, so you're free to live the life you want. Find out how an annuity can give you lifetime income at protectedincome.org.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1 pharmacist-recommended memory support brand. You can find it in the vitamin aisle in stores everywhere. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Acura.
Better life.
Acura.
Beat that.
I'm on it. Me too. Beat that.
Well, that about sums it up.
Today's big number, 52%. That's how much Occidental Petroleum tumbled on Monday. Plummeting crude prices drove the oil and gas company to an 18-year low.
Now, shares of Occidental are bouncing back as oil rebounds this morning. Right now, Occidental Petroleum shares are up 27%. Taking a look at crude prices bouncing higher by about 5% or so in the early going. Oh, now we're higher by almost 8%. Really moving a lot higher here in the last couple minutes. Coming off the falling demand due to the coronavirus outbreak, escalating tension.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
Between Saudi Arabia and Russia, and fears that all of this could lead to an excess supply of oil. Joining us now on the CNBC Newsline for the state of play for the energy sector, our very own Brian Sullivan. What a day yesterday. And Brian, what a day already today. Here we've got WTI up more than 7.5%.
Everything's fine, right, Courtney? Good morning, by the way. Yeah, I mean, these moves they're sudden, they're violent, they're a little bit crazy, I think. I mean, you look at Occidental, down 52%, as you noted yesterday, up 27% right now, which is only 334 because obviously the number got smaller. You know, listen, we're not picking on Oxy. Occidental's a good company, but anything with debt was attacked yesterday. As the price of oil fell, obviously you simply have, less money when you're an oil company. And so the more debt you have, the harder some people may perceive that to be to pay back. And we saw some bonds up 27%, oil up 6 or 7%, still only in the mid to low $33 range. That's probably not going to cut it for a lot of companies. I'll give you this, Courtney. You had a big number. I'll come at you with a bigger one if you don't mind, which is in the Bakken region of North Dakota, generally a higher cost. There's a number of companies that primarily operate there. The average return of one of those companies operating in the Bakken this year, the average stock return, is about negative 78%. That's not a made-up number. You've got Oasis Petroleum down 90%, Unit Corp down 62%, Continental Resources down 80%, down 78% on average, and it's March 10th.
So, Brian, we've got these S&P gainers, though, at least in the early going. Most of them are related to oil and gas, so perhaps we pushed it a little bit too far yesterday. But we do have some big problems. You brought up the debt issue. I mean, that didn't go away overnight.
No, it's not. But the one thing that people might fear might go away overnight for some of these companies is their dividend. I mean, if you look at companies like an ExxonMobil or others, and you look at their dividend yields, they look incredibly attractive to some people who may just screen for dividend yields. The problem is, will these dividends have to be cut across the board at many companies? We don't know. Exxon pays an 8.3% dividend yield. Oxy's dividend yield right now is above 20% with a $3.16 dividend. Exxon's at $3.48. So if you're just looking to buy these companies for dividends, I think the fear on the street in the New York Times talked about this and others, not just me, is that will there have to be dividend or capital spending or other types of cuts? And most people agree it's going to be some combo of many of those. It might be all of those for some companies. The one thing I know is there will be layoffs, and it's going to get hard for a lot of these folks that I've gotten to know in Midland, Texas, and Williston, North Dakota. It's going to be tougher times ahead.
Brian, this is Tom Lee. What do you think is going to happen? The next steps between Saudi Arabia and Russia and OPEC and the whole fracture. I mean, do you expect something in the next few weeks or the next few months?
You know, I don't. People are looking at that, Tom, as maybe kind of the save, if you will, because obviously they walked away. They each took their barrel, if you will, and went home. Maybe if things, it's kind of like everybody's punching themselves in the face and nobody wins, right? So maybe there's a situation where and we saw the Department of Energy put out a statement talking about foreign actors in oil. It sounds like they're going after either Russia or Saudi Arabia, probably the Russians. Maybe there's a situation where the State Department of the U.S. gets together with Russia. They talk about some of these sanctions that are on the Russian oil company Rosneft. And again, I'm speculating based on everybody chattering yesterday. Maybe if we agree to pull back some of these sanctions, they decide to go back to the table with the Saudis. They had a 1.5 million barrel a day production cut deal in place on top of the 2.1 they've already got. Because remember, here's the problem, guys. The current deal ends March 31st. If no deal is made, then as of April 1st, it's going to be April Fool's Day for the industry because every company is able to pump as much as they want, or every country, I should say, in OPEC.
Right. Brian, thank you so much for giving us that update. Continue to follow all of this for us. It's a really important sector, particularly right now.
Absolutely. Great show this morning, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye-bye.
Well, the global coronavirus outbreak has now surpassed 4,000.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
While the number of cases here in the U.S. has topped 700, Rahel Solomon is here now with more. Hi, Rahel.
Hi, Courtney. So that's exactly right. Out of the more than 4,000 deaths worldwide, 884 have occurred outside of mainland China. More than 100 countries have now reported cases of the coronavirus. Meanwhile, fears about the ongoing outbreak and the subsequent market turmoil have wiped out more than $5 trillion from the S&P 500's market value. The index's 10 largest companies by market cap, including Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and Berkshire Hathaway, have seen their combined values drop by more than $1.4 trillion. Several travel and leisure companies are pulling their financial guidance due to the inability to offer accurate forecasts because of the coronavirus. Taking a look at shares of Vail Resorts, they were down substantially the last time I checked, as is Booking Holdings. You can see Vail Resorts down about 12% in pre-market, booking holds 2%. And also, the Coachella and Stagecoach music festivals reportedly being postponed and also possibly rescheduled because of the coronavirus. According to Variety, the fest may now take place in October instead of next month. The report says that the music events company Golden Voice is working to figure out which artists would be available for the later dates. But Courtney, as you know, just last Friday we talked about South by Southwest being called off entirely for the first time in its history. So this is something that's becoming more common in the live event space. I'll send it back to you.
Difficult calls to make, I think, Rahel. Thank you very much. Well, speaking of travel companies, JetBlue CEO Robin Hayes will discuss the challenges his company and the airline industry are facing amid the outbreak. That's 4 p.m. on the closing bell. Make sure not to miss that. Well, on deck, futures are pointing us to a solid rebound following yesterday's historic sell-off. Dow Jones Industrial Average higher by more than 1,100 points. Why the latest Black Monday could mean better days ahead for investors. And a reminder, as the global markets continue to face volatility, you can always watch or listen to us live on the go on the CNBC app. Worldwide Exchange back in just a moment.
Life Room by Four Seasons, where outdoor living meets future technology. No matter your style or budget, Four Seasons has got you covered. Simple shade from the sun? Covered. Outdoor dining and style? Covered. Need additional living space? Oh yeah, that too. Call today and arrange your free design consultation. Four Seasons, we've got you covered.
We are the dreamers.
We changed the world.
Because we don't give up.
IU can help you live your dream.
IU is an online college, so your campus is wherever you want it to be.
Take classes when you want to take classes.
You receive the tools you need at no extra cost.
Even a brand new laptop and tablet to use in school.
Call IU, then tell them your dream.
1-800-967-1179. 1-800-967-1179.
On the next Squawk Box, navigating market turmoil, Mohamed El-Arian with a global economic forecast for investors, plus his take on the Fed's next move. Squawk Box, 6 a.m. Eastern today. Watch and listen live on the CNBC app.
CNBC Select rounded up the best exclusive credit card bonus offers and promotions. The clock's ticking. Head over to cnbc.com/select before it's too late.
Stocks crater. With oil price wars and the coronavirus fueling recession fears, how to stay steady during uncharted times. Squawk on the Street, 9 a.m. Eastern. Watch or listen live on the CNBC app.
Welcome back. Stock futures are looking to trim at least some of yesterday's historic losses. Take a look at Tesla shares up more than 10. Futures are looking to trim at least some of yesterday's historic losses. Take a look at Tesla shares up more than 10% after shedding more than 13% yesterday. That's the early NASDAQ 100 gainer. But we continue to watch the Dow futures over the past 25. But wow.
The station you're listening to is experiencing technical difficulties.
What a day we had yesterday. Looks like we could be reversing some of that today, indicated higher by about 4%. But yesterday was pretty brutal. As brutal as it was, though, there is still some hope for investors. According to Bespoke Investment Group, the average gain after the past 10 Black Mondays, where the S&P dropped more than 5% in a single day, we saw gains of nearly 5% the following day, and more than 12% over the next 6 months. To discuss, let's bring in Jeffrey Kleintop. He's Charles Schwab Chief Global Investment Strategist, and still with us is Fund Strat's Tom Lee. Jeff, thanks for joining us. We're going to jump in and start with you. Yesterday was a pretty stomach-churning day for a lot of investors. Today, it looks like we could maybe be clawing some of that back, but my gosh, which way are we supposed to feel as investors? Did things fundamentally change overnight from where we were yesterday?
No, and a bounce probably isn't going to make the bottom here. Traders should probably be pretty cautious of this bounce. As you note, we often get them, but Look, from past pandemics, we know that generally markets don't bottom until we see new case growth begin to peak out. By the way, that already happened in China, and those markets have really begun to improve over the course of the last month or so, but not here. I think longer-term investors are probably better served to focus on the duration of the decline rather than its depth. There may be more downside to come, but stocks are unlikely to remain down through, let's say, year-end, barring a severe and prolonged recession, which isn't our base case.
Recession, there's that word. What do you think, Tom?
I think investors are really worried. In fact, if you look at the decline in stocks through yesterday, the move in the VIX, move in interest rates, we've priced 100% probability of a recession. So I think markets are bracing for something that if it doesn't happen in the real world, it sets up for a V-bounce.
Jeff, what would you be advising clients to do right now? Is this time to put some money to work and take advantage of the sell-off, or is it just too early to do that because, as you suggested, perhaps the bottom has not been put in yet?
Yeah, I think for traders, it may still be a little early. You want to see a bit more technical support than what we're seeing now. For longer-term investors, I think taking a look at your portfolio, there are areas that you might be underweight. I noted how China's actually been doing pretty well, and until, yesterday, had actually been nearly back to where it started the year. Lots of stimulus in China. Falling oil prices, by the way, China's the world's biggest oil importer, actually helps them. So if you don't have any emerging markets in your portfolio, you may have an opportunity to add some here that may actually be diversifying you. On the downside, emerging markets have not been falling as much as the overall market. They've actually been gaining more on the upside. So if you're looking for a place to add in this marketplace, that might be a place where a lot of investors are underweight that could serve them here.
Yeah, I've actually seen that. It does seem interesting that China's reached within 2% of its all-time highs. But if the U.S. is going to dip into recession and investors are pricing that in, I don't see how emerging markets can be unscathed. So to me, somehow market relative performance doesn't make sense. I think if investors want to understand whether stocks have bottomed, I think it ultimately comes down to, what happens to interest rates. But I think the leadership has to come from the S&P.
And if the leadership comes from the S&P, are there groups, are there names we should be watching? Are there levels you want to watch where when we hit there, that's time to put some money to work?
Well, a couple of things happened yesterday that I think are important to thinking about a bottoms coming. One was that only 7% of the industries in the S&P were up over a 3-month period. That's only happened 14 times in the last 40 years. The last time it happened in 2008, it was the structural bottom of that bear market. That was October 08. And from that point, a lot of groups began to outperform. So I think if we're, like as Jeff says, if this isn't the bottom, I think the structural bottom's now in place. And what you want to avoid are the groups that led us to that weakness, which is energy and financials. But I think a lot of groups like tech, healthcare, consumer staples, discretionary, they're actually buyable today.
What do you think about some of those groups, Jeff?
It's interesting. Energy and financials, though, might be the first to rebound. I know that seems crazy in this environment with the yield curve looking the way it does and oil prices crashing. But look, whatever led on the downside might lead on the recovery side as well, especially if we get a deal within OPEC. Remember, the Saudi Crown Prince is a very difficult person to forecast. He's flip-flopped on Khashoggi. A number of other things could flip-flop tomorrow. Who knows? And energy stocks could really lead a very sharp rebound. The yield curve as well. If the Fed cuts pretty aggressively, we start to see a steepening of the yield curve. You could look out later this year and see an environment where it actually is maybe beneficial for financials. So those two areas, having fallen so sharply, could actually rebound the sharpest as well. We're not recommending an overweight to them here, but I'd be cautious going to an underweight.
We're just about out of time, but Tom, I'm going to end with you, and let's talk just very quickly about rates here. We are seeing a slight rebound, at least off the lows, for the 10-year and the 30-year. What do we need to be watching here?
I think that's a big deal. I think Jeff Gundlach was making some points over the weekend that this looks like a potential reversal pattern taking place. And I think investors will take a lot of comfort if the 10-year puts a 1 in front of its rate again.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. We're sitting at 0.7 there. Jeff, Tom, thank you both for joining us. That's it for Worldwide Exchange this morning. Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning, stocks. Coming off the biggest one-day drop since the financial crisis, but futures pointing to a rebound today, and crude is clawing back some of those losses in yesterday's carnage.
President Trump says that he will talk to Congress about relief for workers who've been impacted by the virus, including a payroll tax cut and help for hourly wage earners.
And Italy is now officially on lockdown. The entire country now subject to travel restrictions. We're We're going to take you there live. It is Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. And Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Our guest host for the next 2 hours is Joe Terranova from Virtus Investment Partners. He's also a CNBC contributor, and it's great to see you here this morning,
Good to
Joe.
see you, Becky.
All right, let's take a look at what's been happening with the U.S. stock futures. They are pointing to a rebound after the steepest single-day declines that we've seen since the 2008 financial crisis. The Dow and the S&P and the NASDAQ all falling more than 7% yesterday in some wild trading that kicked in circuit breakers just as we got underway with trading yesterday. For the first time we've seen circuit breakers in about 20 years. Declines jumped in at 7%. That's when trading was halted for 15 minutes. It did work as anticipated. It slowed down some of the panic selling, some of the machine selling that was taking place, let people kind of reassess and take a look at things. But by the end of the day, still down even more than that. For the Dow futures, for the Dow, it was a decline of more than 2,000 points. Right now, you are looking at a big bounce back, but only by about half of the declines that we saw yesterday. Dow futures indicated up by almost 1,100 points.
When it was down, headed for 8, it found some support, and then a couple of times yesterday it was down 5, so it was down between, and then it closed about where it was indicated to open. Right, but we kept saying, what if a garden variety correction's 12, and we got a pandemic? What's a decent? Where do you make about maybe? Well, we got an additional 18 or 19% yesterday.
Well, in total, down
to 18 or 19.
Yeah.
You're once again, if it goes from here up 1,000 a day, you'll once again be the call of the bottom. You will be. You'll be right there again. I'm the call of the bottom. I hope you are too, and I wouldn't be surprised. But it's just consensus. It's just the feeling that everyone has at the same time that you express. That's all it is, and that's many times that is the contrarian indicator. But I don't know. Do you think? You think we got more to go?
I understand the focus on the equities market. It's right. But I
think
stay
on. You want to go to oil? Because that's going to.
The focus
might bounce.
Treasury yields. Treasury yields.
They're at 0.
Treasury yields have been the leading indicator of where equities are going. I think yesterday we got down to about 30.
We're looking at 0.4%.
We got down to 31 basis points yesterday. Yeah, right. Okay, we are now back to 72 basis points, which is exactly where we were on Friday.
It's good.
So that is a very positive indicator, and Treasury yields have been leading the equities market in all risk assets since the middle of January. If you go back to January 14th to January 31st, while the equities market wasn't concerned about the coronavirus and potential spread to the United States, what was telegraphed at that point? Treasury yields that were melting lower, financials at that point topped out. I think that's the first place that you have to identify if you're going to see stability, and I like what I saw yesterday from yields.
I mean, you need to add oil into it now, though, into the mix, because that was a large part of yesterday, and it got to 28.
So I agree with you.
Here's what might happen, though. So Putin is not our friend. He'd like to crush shale. MBS, we've been backing this dude. No matter what happened, no matter what he does, we've backed him with his, his moves into all the stuff that's out here. So he needs to make some type of better arrangement with Russia at this point to help us out. They need to come together. I don't know whether Putin wants to, because they want to crush shale, right? They want to put the shale
business. It's in the best interest of the United States, the Russians, and Saudi Arabia.
Well, I don't know if it is, but the Rust probably is.
Come together and have some form of a dialogue. So what if that bounces back
to 35? That would help. Yields bounce.
I would agree with that, but
we're at 33.
Yeah, 40, 35, 40.
Yeah, I mean, watching with some of that. And by the way, it's the velocity of these moves that's been so shocking to kind of watch. We were sitting at all-time highs on February 19th. Right. We've come down 19.
12 trading days.
Yeah.
12 trading days. Right. So there's been 5 instances, on Becky's point, in terms of velocity, where you've experienced during the course of 1 week a decline of greater than 10%. Obviously, the largest one was you were down 18% from October 6th of 08 to October 10th of 08. The other instances, obviously, are 87, 2000, and 2001. You lost 11% in the last week of February. So the question becomes, everyone believes in a V recovery. And if you look back at all these instances, there is a V recovery. You have to identify. You have to identify: is it a lowercase V or an uppercase V? And that's the question. So
I saw some notes yesterday, at least in some industries, where people are asking, is this a U recovery for these particular industries where there's a big fear factor?
So the U recovery really only happened after 2000, 2001, because you had the dot-com bubble
People are going to
burst.
start booking cruise ships again anytime soon?
But you had the dot-com bubble burst, then you had the experience of 9/11, and then you had that U recovery that took multi-years to recover. 87, it took you 2 years to recover, and in 08, it took you 5 years to recover. The experience I think most people are trying to identify with right now is December of 2018. That took you 5 months to recover. So markets are moving much faster. I think we're getting acclimated to a different type of marketplace. And let's understand, this is biological in nature.
But let me ask you,
we've never experienced that
before. Let me ask you the question that we were asking yesterday that I still just don't know the answer to, which is, what do you think the markets think in terms of the duration and extent and scale of the problem here, in terms not necessarily of the health scare unto itself, which is real, but the fear factor and how many people are not going to either be going to work, be going to restaurants, getting on the plane, getting on the
markets discount things. And
no, I know they discount
the thing that you're saying here is what we've been talking about for 3 weeks happening.
No, but we haven't. But I would argue that up until the past week, there was a view that somehow it was not going to come here in some meaningful way.
When you keep asking the question, when someone like Kyle Bass, answers you straight up and says, "I think it's mostly in the market," why didn't you ever accept that maybe, or at least put that into your thinking, that someone that smart who actually has skin in the game?
It's in my thinking.
It is?
Yeah.
Well, because you can say.
I'm asking the question of Joe. Why are we?
I don't
understand
I kind of agree with what Joe's saying, and I think there will be a point where
money in the game know better.
We'll see an escalation.
Aren't held accountable.
We'll see an escalation in the number of cases that are reported here in the United States. We'll see an escalation, and the market will desensitize to that. And the market will stop going down. I think you have to go back, and Becky mentioned 12 days ago where we were at all-time highs. Greed takes the form of excessive leverage that's nourished by excessive liquidity, right? 100%. And that's where we were 12 days ago. Where we are now, and when we get to a point of stabilization, will be fear. And fear is when you still have that excessive liquidity and the leverage doesn't want it. And we're getting to that point where their liquidity's out there, but speculators are saying, oh, no, we don't want to accept that leverage. We're getting close to that point. But I think for the investor at home, there's an interesting perspective here of how you have to treat this. Because it is happening so fast, you have to have the Warren Buffett mentality and treat all of this as a passive investment. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you're invested in private equity right now, are you seeing it? Is it visible to you what's going on in your investments? It's not. If I said to you, Andrew, your house is going to decline 10% over the next week, and then in the following 3 months, it could go down another 10%. Are you going to say, Joe, I'm going to sell my house? So I think the investor at home has to understand this and treat it passively. And I think we're becoming more financially literate, that we're getting to that place.
If you're in private equity and you have an airline, you know exactly what's happening.
I'm sorry.
You don't need it being publicly traded for you to know something's happening. If you're a private equity firm,
are you going to act on it?
Part of it, let's put it in perspective. I mean, it was a pretty fast run to the upside, too. If you're looking at how far this pullback has taken us with yesterday's decline, for the NASDAQ, you're still only back at the lowest level that we saw since October 9th of last year. The damage is a little more if you're looking at the other indices. For the S&P 500, it goes all the way back to everything we've gained since June 3rd of last year. And for the Dow, which is the biggest impact, it goes all the way back to January of last year. It's 14 months of retracement.
The markets get emotional, and we get emotional. What's our total number of cases? Everybody that walked by me, I think's got the freaking thing now. I mean, I don't want anyone coming. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. And there's 500 out of
you
how
have
many?
adopted all of my freakish sort of hand washing and Purell.
Have you seen video of the toilet paper? What's with the toilet paper?
Because think of things you run out of. That's
I know, but why?
Like to be up there.
I can think of other things that. I'll make do with that, but food, water, toilet paper. That's the.
Because there were shortages in Japan, because we watched it play out in this instance.
All right. I'll figure something out. Take
a
shower.
The reflex response is for the economy to freeze up, right? The question becomes, is there this global coordination to provide, when it freezes, the warmth to unlock the economy and for there to be on the other side a sharp rebound. And I thought the president yesterday coming
let's talk about it.
Here's
what he did.
Let's talk about the president's job.
President Trump now says he's going to be meeting with Senate and House Republicans today, the ones that aren't self-quarantined, to discuss a possible tax relief measure in response to the coronavirus.
Are going to be asking tomorrow, we're seeing the Senate, we're going to be meeting with House Republicans, Mitch McConnell, everybody, and discussing a possible payroll tax cut or relief, substantial relief, very substantial relief. That's a big number. We're also going to be talking about hourly wage earners getting help so that they can be in a position where they're not going to ever miss a paycheck.
Wall Street Journal reports that Peter Navarro and Jared Kushner are pushing for a payroll tax cut now, while Larry Kudlow and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin are calling for targeted measures aimed at helping workers without sick leave and businesses facing virus-related disruptions.
I'm in the latter camp. I mean, payroll tax cut doesn't help anybody who is not getting paid because they're staying home or because they're suddenly their tips have disappeared or anything else.
Right. That's why Jason Furman making that case yesterday. They did this back when he was advising President Obama. And he wished it had done more.
Ultimately, maybe all of these things. I mean, I still think that we're going to have a conversation about bailouts of industries that hasn't even begun yet. But I think you're going to hear these companies
I would like to see targeted actions that really
come to
help
Washington to lobby for all sorts of things.
I agree with Becky. I think specifically talking about hourly wage earners and supporting them, that's priority number one.
Well, and just the common sense of, look, we should make sure that people aren't incentivized to still go to work if they're sick. We should make sure that people are getting sick leave for them, as President Trump said yesterday, for things that's not their fault.
Yeah.
We want them, for the public good, to stay home and not risk infecting more people. We shouldn't do that to mean that they go without pay for that.
And I think the president's economic team should walk in with a chart of the Dow Jones transports, and there's the reason why you have to support the travel industry. Obviously, the market is telling you a story there that's a particularly ominous one. I also think there are other measures that they need to enact here to make sure that investors are not discouraged to investing. You actually want to encourage, at this point, investing in the stock market. You could take the 401k annual limit. You could raise that to $25,000. You could take the capital loss on an annualized basis that's been $3,000 for a capital loss since the last 40 years. You could raise that to $25,000. You could take SALT limits, which are $10,000. You could raise those to $25,000. So I think there are unique things that you could do, specifically to your point, targeted to let's encourage investment in the market.
How do SALT limits? I mean, it would help a lot of people on the coast where you've seen potentially some of these things, but I don't think that's targeted enough. Raising the SALT limits on things, and also if you take all these moves that look like you're only helping the stock market.
Yeah.
I think that, listen, helping the stock market, encouraging assets and investment into assets has been part of the story for the last 10 years.
Right. It may also be part of the reason, but you're also seeing the inequality effect that has come in as part of that too. I would say that the moves we took during the financial crisis led us to the point where you had many people feeling like they were not part of the system that was getting.
Andrew, I saw.
I think Bernie Sanders. I think if you look at some of those things, you look back at.
I'm with Becky on this one. I have to say, only because I don't think it's politically palatable to be helping investors at this particular moment.
The wealthy, they're probably going to get through this. Okay.
I think you're much more worried
in Italy, there's no mortgage
at the restaurant.
100%, but that's priority number one. But you have to have a broad, sweeping measure of policies, and they have to come from targeting specifically Main Street, Wall Street. Look at yesterday, the way the European bond market traded. That's a glaring signal that you need global coordination from central banks to support that area of contagion.
It's a 3-hour show. We may use it all up. Hey, so just quickly. So I was reading Ed Bastian.
Yes.
I couldn't help but, I'm not laughing, but I couldn't help but think he's like, why did I say that last time? Why did I do that 3 weeks ago? Yeah. How much is that? $1 billion? They may need
$100 million annually for 10 years, and I said it then.
I know, but
I said it then.
But little do you know, the next week it's like, holy crap! I hope we can stay in business. Where's my $100 million? doing carbon. What was he doing? Carbon. Really? Okay. But that $100 million is going to look pretty good.
Well intentions, good intentions, my friend. Good intentions.
Yeah.
Let's get everybody
virtue signaling, good intentions.
We can have. There's a lot
marketing.
More of a debate to be had about all of these issues. But let's give you an update right now on the coronavirus outbreak in America right here. The CDC now recommending the following. Joe, you're going to have to listen to this one.
All right, go ahead.
People over 60 years old.
Okay. How do you know that? You can't tell.
Well, I can tell. Or anyone who has a chronic medical condition, buckle down for a lengthy stay at home. You're built like an ox, so you're going to be fine. But that means stocking up on medications, household items, and groceries. The CDC also warning people in the at-risk categories to avoid non-essential travel. This includes long plane trips and any cruises. Speaking of cruises, the Grand Princess cruise ship has docked in Oakland, California after 21 people aboard tested positive for the coronavirus. Over the next several days, the thousands of people aboard will disembark and be quarantined for 14 days at military bases in California, Texas, and Georgia. This is one of the issues that President Trump didn't want the numbers to go up, but the numbers are going to go up. Boston has separately canceled its St. Patrick's Day parade. Organizers of Coachella, that music festival, reportedly planning to postpone the event from April to October. Some colleges, including Princeton, now telling students not to come back from spring break, moving lectures and classwork online. CVS Pharmacy has announced it will waive delivery fees in response to the outbreak, allowing people to stay home and still get their medication. Meantime, the White House saying President Trump has not been tested for the virus because he doesn't have any symptoms and hasn't come into prolonged close contact with any known patients. However, the president's incoming chief of staff, Mark Meadows, is under self-quarantine after possibly coming into contact with someone who did test positive for the coronavirus.
All at the CPAC. That's right.
Including the Congressman Gates, who was on Air Force One with the president yesterday before self-quarantine.
Doug Collins, who we've had on the show, and Gosa or whatever his name is.
But you're looking at events. My question to you, and this goes back to the larger economy question, is these conferences, these events, these festivals, all being shuttered. How long do they get shuttered for, and what is in the market on that? And the reason I ask is you looked yesterday at South by Southwest, and I don't know if you saw that interview with the CEO of that company. That company had no insurance.
Right. And
covers pandemics.
They don't do it this year. They probably can't do it next year.
They're trying to hold on to the money, not refund people's money, and keep it as a credit for next year, but still have tens of millions of dollars that they have to pay out.
Right.
And this could go on if this continues through the summer. There are other festivals, there are other events. And then, by the way, we hit the big one, which is the Olympics. And all of the expenses that sponsors have spent, this network, NBC, owned by our parent company, Comcast, and everybody else, there's insurance there, but probably not enough to go around. I mean, it gets complicated very, very quickly. And I don't know if that is baked into the market just yet.
I don't think anyone knows if that's baked into the market. I go back to what I said before. This is biological in nature. We've never experienced that before. How are we to know what the outcome is going to be 2 to 3 months from now? We're still determining whether we should be closing schools or not.
Right.
We're trying to figure out what we should do with corporate travel.
Where you see it, it's here and here. It really hasn't happened much.
Look, the good news is you look at the numbers in South Korea, you look at the numbers in Wuhan, President Xi,
Singapore, where it's warmer,
which is the
made peter out.
Time possible that things are. But does that mean?
By the way, where they took very draconian measures. And
so
if you want to see where you are
we 6 weeks behind? Are we 8 weeks behind? Are we? These
a
are the
good
questions.
example may be what's happening in Italy right now. That country has expanded travel restrictions from just the northern provinces to the entire country at this point. This is part of an effort to try and control the spread of the coronavirus. That means that all of Italy's 60 million people have to demonstrate a need if they want to travel outside their home areas. All public gatherings will be banned, and restaurants and cafes will have to close at dusk. Schools will be closed until April 3rd. Italy's premier went on television telling people to stay home. He said the severe measures are needed to defend the most fragile members of Italian society. I think he specifically told people, stay home. You want to make sure you protect your grandparents. We will bring you a live update from Italy later this morning, but these are probably the most draconian measures that have ever taken place in a Western society during peacetime.
I think age is chronological. I date my chronological age as the age of my hair, which is like about 35.
Well, there are questions about how much of it is age and how much of it is underlying condition.
Right.
And that's the.
And they say get all your prescriptions filled. You know what I need to get? FiberCon. That's
essential.
I got no high blood pressure, no cholesterol. No,
For you.
I do take that Propecia stuff, though. I got to get that. I got to get a lot of that. You did not take that, unfortunately. And then Centrum Silver, even though I only have. Anyway, coming up, you probably got. Don't you have stuff? Do you take any pills at all?
I take all sorts of crazy. I'm like running a box.
I'm embarrassed. I got to stock up on FiberCon. That's the only pill I take every day.
I'm trying to just keep going. No question.
Now, ED is not an underlying medical condition, is it? Do you know, Joe?
Now, it just got very uncomfortable very, very quickly.
All right, coming up.
Just got very quiet very quickly.
Coming up, crude staging a comeback after the worst one-day drop since the first Gulf War. Details next, and we're going to take you live to China. And I was looking at, you see these accidental photos taken, and there's these people walking along this bridge. It's in Wuhan. It's like a travel thing. It's like, no, I don't think I'm going there. Anyway, we're going to go live to China, where the latest inflation data is revealing the economic impact of the outbreak. Plus, check this out. This was the scene yesterday in South Korea's normally busy airport. I don't think that's like at midnight or anything. I think that just is what it looks like. The few passengers were greeted by vast empty terminals and idle check-in counters. Many countries have imposed restrictions on travelers coming from South Korea because of the outbreak there. I don't know. It's fine. We're going to be right back.
This CNBC program is sponsored by Baird, a strong financial partner for 100 years.
We are Very, and we created the Veridesk to improve the way people work. But we're so much more than a standing desk. We have walls, lights, workstations, and all of the office furniture you need to create a flexible workspace. With free space planning, free delivery, and free installation included. So it's easy, and we do it fast, in days, not months, so your space can grow as quickly as your business. Get a free space plan for your office at Very.com.
Is an historic day of trading, which did include a break.
A precautionary measure that we put in place so that the market can slow down for a minute.
Dow Transport's on pace to close at their lowest level since December of 2008.
These prices, 40% of all oil being pulled out of the ground in the United States right now, is losing money.
The Dow is within about a percentage point of bear market territory.
It is the worst point drop for the Dow ever, down 7.8%.
Watch or listen to CNBC live on the app.
We are KiwiCo, and we deliver hands-on STEM projects designed to inspire young innovators. Kids of all ages can explore science, engineering, art, and more. Get your first month free. Visit trykiwico.com.
This is a commercial for Warby Parker glasses. Now that's out of the way, let's enjoy the mixing of these acetate chips, which will one day turn into a pair of our tortoise glasses. Try 5 pairs for free at warbyparker.com. Ah, the final voyage of a pair of Warby Parker glasses. They've been hand-buffed, hand-assembled, and hand-inspected for quality. Twice. Now they're ready to see the world. Best of luck out there, friend.
Hey, guy. ED issues? We got this. Today's your day. Go to forhims.com/ED.
Welcome back to Squawk Box this morning. Word from Apple this morning that 38 of its 42 stores in China have now been reopened after extending closures due, of course, to the coronavirus. Meantime, Chinese President Xi flying into Wuhan City overnight to inspect new efforts to control the outbreak. That is good news and a sign to the world, perhaps, that things are getting better there. We want to get to Eunice Yoon right now, who is in Beijing with more. Eunice.
Thanks so much, Andrew. That's exactly what the state media is saying as well. President Xi Jinping toured a prefabricated hospital, the first one in Wuhan, the epicenter, if you remember, that was dedicated for coronavirus patients. So he rallied medical workers today and greeted patients via the hospital's conferencing system. His visit also coincides with the closure of the last of the 14 pop-up clinics in Wuhan. And as I was saying, state media has declared this as a victory. They say that victory against the virus is near. Now, it also comes as the country is trying to get the economy back on track. The latest data has shown that the epidemic is depressing prices. For the producer prices, those are, of course, the prices at the factory gate, down by 0.4% year on year, suggesting weak demand. Also, the core CPI is now at a 10-year low at 1%. Food prices were higher at 21.9%, but officials said that was largely due to transport issues as well as hoarding, most likely. Looking ahead, most analysts now expect that inflation is going to continue to face downward pressure because of the falling agricultural prices, pig restocking from last year, and then the slump in oil prices as well as worldwide demand. Guys?
Okay. Eunice Yoon, thank you for that report.
And oil prices are bouncing a little bit, anyway, this morning after plunging 24% yesterday. That was the worst one-day percentage drop since 1991. Remember, that was, I think, the first Gulf War. Following the failed OPEC, I remember it, following the failed OPEC deal. I remember exactly where I was. It sparked a price war. Joining us now on the Squawk Newsline is our own Brian Sullivan. And Brian, we were just talking earlier about, whether the key players here all have something to gain by maybe not being quite as, as dogmatic as what we saw yesterday. You think that MBS and Putin finally come to some type of understanding, Brian, or we're on our own here?
I think for now we're on our own, Joe, and good morning, everybody. I mean, whether or not the two sides come back together, I know the Department of Energy put out a statement yesterday late, basically blaming foreign actors for what's going on. Obviously, I think that was a jab at Russia. Remember, we've got sanctions on Russia's Rosneft, which is run by Igor Sechin, who is Vladimir Putin's bestie, and so maybe this is a payback to us. They know how weak U.S. shale is, guys. They know the debt levels. They know that the majority of all new wells drilled in the last couple of years are done at a loss. You couldn't drill a well now unless you're one of the big boys. Exxon, Chevron, Occidental, and a few others could probably break even or make a little money on a new well now in the Permian, but almost nobody else can. I think they know that. But you got to also remember, there's the demand side. I mean, we can do whatever we want on supply. OPEC and Russia could come back together and dance around the fire pit in the maypole and come to a conclusion. But if people slow down driving in the United States and China because of what's going on, then global demand is going to fall a lot faster than anything some deal could do.
So we're going to be talking about it all day. If a 50% retracement, Brian, what would you? I mean, where do you think this finally settles? Because that seems like a bit of an overreaction yesterday. You think we settle somewhere in the low 40s, or we're really going to be down here in the 30s again for a while?
Yeah. I mean, God. Well, Joe, if I knew the answer to that, then I'd be just coming on as a guest all the time. Although, listen, who knows? I mean, I heard Eunice, and she goes to Wuhan. Okay, I look at this traffic congestion indicator from the GPS company TomTom. I mean, it's just one indicator, and I'll post it up after the interview's over. Nobody's driving in Shanghai and Beijing on the weekends. You can see that from traffic data versus last year. It's like they're going to work, but they're not doing anything on the weekends. I mean, Seattle is down 12% or something like this from last year's levels. I drove home last night. I did the same commute every night, same time, same roads. And anecdotally, traffic seemed to be down. It could be spring break, who knows, Joe. But the reality is if demand falls and we don't have a sharp and sudden reduction in output in the United States, then I would say we're going to go to the high 20s, mid to high 20s. And I hate to say that. Dan Pickering, energy executive, put out a great piece yesterday saying, value over volume. You know, Joe, that people I talk to estimate 40% of every barrel we pull out of the ground in America right now is at a loss. 40%. Imagine if you sold 40% of your hamburgers at a loss, 40% of your Volvos.
Including Brian, right, all the shale?
There's no shale that's been drilled in the last couple of years, with the exception of the names I mentioned, Chevron, Exxon, Occidental, and maybe Pioneer in some cases, is profitable. None.
Hey, Brian, listen to this. So, and then I'll ask you where we really need to focus our attention, whether it's dividend cuts from some of the big majors that are pretty well capitalized, probably. I mean, they'll survive, or whether we worry about, all the smaller players that may go out of business because of all their debt. Both of those are things to worry about. But listen to this. The Russian Energy Ministry called a meeting with oil companies on Wednesday to discuss future cooperations with OPEC countries. Quoting, we plan to discuss whether to return to cooperation with OPEC or not. And that's happening today. I mean, maybe they're getting the message, or maybe is that a glimmer of hope right there that they're going to talk?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they could be floating it. Listen, it's like I said earlier, everyone's punching each other in the face, and nobody's winning. No one's going to have their hand up in the ring at the end. I mean, Saudis need 80 plus a barrel. The Russians can print money. See, the difference is, of course, the countries can print their own money and devalue their currency and sort of live on budget deficits. Companies have been living on debt that's owed by somebody else. And, of course, yesterday, the heaviest indebted companies got hit. You said dividend cuts, probably capital spending cuts. They're going to have to come. It's going to be a lot of jobs lost, tens of thousands, maybe more jobs lost, because you can't complete these wells. You can't complete these projects. There's 22 liquefied natural gas projects that are in some form of construction, production, projection, whatever. Those are going to some of those are going to have to be taken off the books unless there's a major turnaround. And listen, it's math, right? I mean, Exxon, Becky, I saw your great interview with Darren Woods. Exxon stock has fallen 50%, basically, in just over a year, which means it basically has to double just to get back to where it was. It's going to be a painful period for the remaining investors that are left.
Yeah, the yield for ExxonMobil at this point is 8.3%. Yield for Chevron, 6.3%. And I guess how long oil stays this low is going to have some determinant on how these things play out.
It's up 12% right now, I guess, maybe on that little kumbaya moment that Joe just mentioned.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Where are you? Right now, you said, I think, already, but you staying at home? What are you doing?
Well, I'm doing I'm sitting in short pants and a T-shirt in my office watching the show. I just want to be honest. I'm trying to be honest with the viewer here.
You're definitely wearing short pants, right?
I was supposed to be at an energy conference in Houston, so my wife was supposed to be gone with the kids. So now we're trying to manage childcare and figure everything out. Okay. By the way, like thousands of other American families.
Exactly. All right. Got the
short
visual.
Pants in your office at home, not at CNBC, right?
Yeah, no, I'm at home, and I want to be clear. I'm barefoot. I'm drinking a grapefruit LaCroix. That's not an endorsement.
What's that, vodka?
No, it's a sparkling water.
All right, never mind.
The vodka comes at 6:01.
Yes. All right.
PM.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was saying. You're well into your second. All right. Anyway, thank you. No, I'm kidding. Thanks, Brian.
All right. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. All right.
In the meantime, the presidential campaign season continues. There's some newest analysis this morning of Joe Biden's tax plan and who would fit the bill. Robert Frank joins us right now. He has more of the details. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Becky. Well, Biden's plan would raise taxes by $4 trillion over a decade, with most of that paid by high earners and companies. That's according to a new study from the Tax Policy Center. Now, Biden would hike tax revenues by 8% in total. Every income group would see a tax increase. The middle class would see an increase of about 0.4%. But the top, they would see by far the biggest hike. The 1%ers would see an average tax increase of about $300,000 a year, and their tax rate would jump by 12% to 42%. Now, the top 0.1%, those are the people making more than $3.6 million a year, they would see their tax rate jump by 16% to 47%. Now, nearly 3/4 of the increase in taxes under his whole plan would be paid by the top 1%ers, and the bottom 90% of Americans there would bear less than 7% of the total cost. Now, Biden's plan calls for rolling back the Trump tax cuts, bringing the corporate rate up to 28% from the current 21%, and he would tax capital gains the same as ordinary income for those who make more than $1 million a year. That means the capital gains tax, which is the most important for investors, would go from 20% to 39.6%, and he would apply the payroll tax to income over $400,000. Now, his plan is less than a quarter of the cost of Bernie Sanders' plan. Sanders' plan would total more than $17 trillion over a decade. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, watching a lot of the predicted stuff.
What's it say this morning, Joe?
This morning, Trump re-election is at about 50 or 51 cents, and Biden is about 48 cents. That's pretty close. The generic, even though we probably
and where is Sanders now?
Sanders is so down. I mean, for Michigan, they're like, he's talking about maybe winning Michigan, 92 cents for Biden in Michigan, which is today. And I think he's single digits for the nomination at this point. But for generic 2020, who wins, Republican or Democrat, that flipped yesterday to 53 cents Democrat, 48 or 49 Republican. Now it's back 51-50, something like that. So it's all coronavirus. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and you wonder how that's going to shape the primaries and the election. And, you know, the tax thing is, if you start to have a true economic slowdown, you're going to see a decrease in tax revenues at the state and federal level. And what will that do to how they're going to make that up? Are they going to raise taxes?
I've seen certain pundits call it, on the left, they're trying to call it the Trump virus, and this is Katrina, things like that. So they're working overtime on trying to work it. But, that's the world.
Hey, Robert, back to Biden for a second.
Yeah.
Is there an estate tax involved in that?
The estate tax is not part of his plan, his official plan, but he's clearly going to be looking at that.
And on the capital gains over $1 million, that's marginal or no?
That is, so that would be equal to the marginal tax rate. Right now it's 20%. It goes up to 39.6. So they would be equal for the first time since the 1980s.
Right. Okay. Robert Frank, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
When we come back, Robinhood investors found themselves on the sidelines of yet another wild market day after the platform crashed for the third time in the last 8 days. We've got the details right after this. And as we head to a break, take a look at yesterday's biggest decliners of the S&P 500 and the Dow. Some significant declines. Apache down by 53%. We'll be right back.
Executive Edge is sponsored by AT&T Business with edge-to-edge intelligence covering virtually every part of your growing business. Learn more at att.com/edge-to-edge.
Through the AT&T network, edge-to-edge intelligence gives you the power to see every corner of your growing business. From finding out what's selling best, to managing your fleet. To collaborating remotely with your teams. Giving you a nice big edge over your competition. That's the power of edge-to-edge intelligence.
When I have a breakout from eczema, the itching, the scratching, it puts my life on hold.
Gold Bond Eczema Relief relieves 5 frustrating symptoms of eczema with 2 times the soothing oatmeal.
So much better.
Gold Bond. Ultimate lotion, ultimate skin.
Robinhood believes now is the time to do money. Without the commission fees and account minimums, so you can start investing wherever you are, even on the bus. Download now and get your first stock on us. Robinhood.
We see breakthrough medicines getting to patients in record time. At Emerson, when issues become inspiration, creating a better world isn't just a result, it's a responsibility. Emerson. Consider it solved.
CNBC Select rounded up the best exclusive limited-time credit card bonus offers and promotions. The clock's ticking. Head over to cnbc.com/select before it's too late.
Does hair loss run in your family?
Treat hair loss at home in just 6 minutes a day with a laser light therapy that's been clinically proven to treat hair loss and regrow thicker, healthier hair. It's called the Capillus Laser Cap.
Laser therapy is an FDA-cleared treatment for hair loss. What laser therapy does, it reboots that blood supply. It reestablishes blood flow, oxygenation. It's a very effective treatment for hair loss.
Using the cap is very simple. I sit pretty much right here, watch TV, and I have it on. It's completely comfortable. You forget you have it on.
I used to put it on when I watch the TV, and I got my hair back.
I feel like it truly has changed the way I see myself.
If you notice it, do something about it. Don't wait, because the longer you wait, the worse it can get.
Save $200 on the Capillus Ultra during our March Mania sale. Call 855-622-0329 or go to capillus.com/mania.
Good morning. Welcome back to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. Take a look at U.S. equity futures this hour. Things do look like we are about to rebound this morning. The Dow looks like it would open up a little over 1,000 points, almost 1,100 points higher. NASDAQ looking to come back at about 362 points up. And then the S&P 500 looks like it would open up about 125 points higher.
It's great, isn't it? A dead cat bounce, 1,000 points. That's where we are right now. I mean,
we will see.
A little bit of a bounce, little comeback.
I was thinking this morning, can you
These
imagine
numbers
going
are so
back
big.
to moves of like, the futures are indicated up by 22 points this morning, and we're talking about the Dow.
That's in percentage terms.
We should do it in percentage.
We should do it in percentage terms because people hear these big numbers and on a relative basis.
Is that like 4%?
The Granville crash. Joe Granville, remember him? He was wacky. 27 points.
Give that 10-year Treasury. That's important. 73 basis points.
Let's show everybody the 10-year Treasury, by the way, right now. See where it stands. Can we flip that board around for the audience to see?
I don't think it's on the other side of that board.
You don't think it's on the other side of the board? It is. There it is.
No, you're not flipping it. It's just a different chart.
740 is where we stand right now.
Vanna White?
I'm like, yes, like Vanna White, Joe. Meantime, this one baffles all of us. It's inexplicable. Investment platform Robinhood suffering its third outage in 8 days during yesterday's market turmoil, angering investors who couldn't trade during a wild day in the markets. The platform was down shortly after the opening bell and was partially restored by 10:30 a.m. And then, though, at around 3:30 p.m., we had problems all over again. This is one of the sort of more baffling things that's happened in the marketplace, especially during these historically volatile times. You have young people who have used this to get into the market. We all thought this was a great thing because it was bringing young people into retail investors into the game.
Until it burns them repeatedly.
And now they can't trade. And I'm worried that it's going to push that whole group out of the market. There's going to be lawsuits left and right, obviously.
Lawsuits are the key. They're going to get pushed out of the market to somewhere else.
But what's so interesting
free trades are now everywhere.
It's this business, though.
This business that made everybody else go to free trades.
Caused free trades everywhere else, and this business couldn't do it.
Right.
Okay. But that's a great environment for investors. And if they're not able to execute on their business model, then they're going to face the challenge of significant lawsuits, and their customers are going to find a home, to Becky's point, somewhere else where they're going to go for zero cost.
They're going to be at TD, they'll be at E-Trade, they'll be at, now they'll be together with Morgan Stanley and every place else.
And they'll be welcomed with wide open arms.
Right. Okay.
All right, the broader markets endured some big losses yesterday that I'm sure you've heard about. The Dow suffered a more than 2,000-point drop. It's worst ever point drop, but our next guest says that there are some companies that are, in his words, on sale and have amazing prospects. Randy Gwertzman is portfolio manager of the Barron Discovery Fund, and some of the we'll go into individual picks that you have here, Randy. Some of them are definitely cheaper than they were, but these are the same ones that we've highlighted had run up so much. Does that give people another chance to buy in, or had they already run up too much anyway?
Well, we've got a number of companies that have run up this year. Teladoc is a good example, but with good reason. So Teladoc is a $10 billion market cap telehealth company.
Okay.
And they provide more than just calling in when you have a cold. It's everything from that to expert opinions, second opinions, and even mental health. So it's a very exciting kind of company. We think revenues can more than double over the next few years. And they have a membership that is about 50 million now, can go up to 65, 70 million, and or even more.
We found it. There it is. Okay, so it ran up, and it doesn't even look like it's pulled back. In fact, it might even be seen as some of a CV19 play. Almost.
Yeah, Teladoc is very specifically, kind of interest to people with CV19. There's a number of other companies that we own as well, which have been a little more under the radar, but can have kind of secondary effects from CV19. So remember, a lot of things that are going on are awareness of how fragile the system is. So it's everything from you want to ensure that people aren't taken advantage of by cyber hypesters, right? So we have cybersecurity companies and also companies like Ping Identity. Ping is a company that kind of secures logins and does multi-factor authentication. And it's both for employees as well as customers of companies. So they have the largest financial institutions and pharma companies and things like that.
That should be going up because there's going to be more remote access?
Correct, more remote access.
That didn't go. That's cheaper for it,
So a number of these companies we think are still more than doubles over the next 3 to 4 years. Another really interesting company is a company called Emergent Biosolutions. What Emergent does is they create vaccines and stockpile them for big pandemics around the world or bioweapon issues. So for anthrax, you may remember we had that scare back in 2001. Since then, we've been stockpiling vaccines for anthrax, smallpox, and other. There are very few companies that can do this. It's very unique. They're working on an influenza A kind of antiviral, which would be in addition to typical antiviral therapies in hospitals. It may have application to coronavirus and other things. We shall see, but it's in phase 3 trials right now. So that's kind of interesting. Not as flashy as Gilead and some of these other companies, but this is a company really that has a lot of room to grow, I think.
How about Zoom Video? Obviously, that's seeing significant momentum.
We don't own Zoom, but obviously it's the same theme. It's telepresence as opposed to telehealth. And the more people we want to do social distancing for CV19, companies like that are going to benefit as well.
I think what's interesting about it is it could potentially change consumers' habits, too. I mean, this is the thing that would make them adopt things that they may not have felt comfortable with.
Correct. That's exactly right. It's accelerating. I think telehealth is really interesting because, even a year or two ago, people said, well, I'll never, I'm not going to use the phone to talk to my doctor. I want to be there in person. And all of a sudden, when you have something like this, it gets people to use the service. They realize how good it is, and then it pulls forward that demand. So it kind of accelerates adoption.
Do you think we're going to change everybody's habits, whether it be telehealth, or do you think that more people are going to ultimately work from home no matter what when this is all over?
It's a good question. I think it's, obviously between, outsourcing, outshoring, offshoring, and all the other kinds of things that companies do, we become much more virtualized. I mean, obviously from an IT perspective all the way down to the human perspective. And I think it's good as we do emergency planning, even at Barron, just, you want to have the scenario ready. We are set up to work from home and off-site, and so we can do it. And I think you're going to see this more and more with a lot of different companies being prepared for this sort of thing.
I don't think so.
I'm optimistic, though.
Not for us.
You think we're stuck here together?
Maybe. If we're not, home is going to be somewhere where,
You're going to Florida for taxes?
Tell me you haven't thought about that for the salt problem that we talk about a salt problem. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Virtual Joe.
Virtual Joe.
You're not a Florida guy.
I don't think I'm a Florida
guy. You're not a Florida guy.
Why not?
He's not a Florida guy.
No?
Wyoming.
You're less of a Wyoming. You know what? You're a Scarsdale guy.
I can ski there.
You could.
Yeah,
you could. But then there's all those rednecks, gun owners, all that stuff. You don't need that. Anyway.
All right. When we come back, take a look at the futures this morning. They are indicated sharply higher after President Trump floated the idea of a payroll tax cut. We'll have the latest details on that and how the markets are reacting after yesterday's huge drops. Right now, the Dow futures indicated up by 1,166 points. Squawk Box will be right back.
1 in 5 Americans have left a job due to toxic work culture. SHRM research shows almost half of the workforce has been treated unfairly due to age. People with disabilities are twice as likely to be unemployed. Nearly 700,000 of the formerly incarcerated will remain unemployed for over a year, and more than 50% of veterans have trouble finding work. These individuals have been constrained for far too long. Tearing down biases at work is good for people and business. Together, let's create better workplaces and a better world.
Pain can weigh you down, but you're resilient. And Icy Hot No Mess fuels your resilience. Fast-acting, targeted pain relief. Because the deeper you dig, the higher you rise. Icy Hot No Mess.
At Ameriprise, our financial advisors can not only recognize you in a crowd, but recognize what's important to you in terms of your goals. Get one-to-one goal-based advice where and when you want, and real-time goal tracking online. Ameriprise Financial.
Hi. Let's do this. I was training for the Olympics, and unfortunately I got injured and didn't make the team. I ate and drank everything in sight.
I did anything and everything that I thought would get me like that skinny, and it never worked.
And then I tried Noom.
Noom taught me how to change my habits little by little.
They say it's based on a cognitive behavioral approach. I just say it works.
Visit Noom.com and lose the weight for good.
The Barkins are empty nesters now, so it doesn't make a whole lot of financial sense for them to stay in this great big house. But, well, this is home. It's where they raised their 3 boys. Could they downsize? Sure. Will they? Not as long as Thanksgiving is a holiday. Planning for the future is about more than just money. Let Equitable be your guide.
This feels like a high school art project. Pause. This will go down as the worst scene in the history of The Prophet.
Literally thought we lost the deal with you. This is our last chance.
The Prophet, an inside look. All new tonight, 10 Eastern. CNBC, get yours.
In the last year, there were 3 victims of cybercrime every second. When a criminal has your personal information, they can do all sorts of things in your name. Criminals can use ransomware, spyware, or malware to gain access to information, like your name, your birthday, and even your social security number.
That's why Norton and LifeLock are now part of one company, providing an all-in-one membership for your cyber safety that gives you identity theft protection, device security, a VPN for online privacy, and more. And if you have an identity theft problem, we'll work to fix it with our $1 million protection package.
There are new cyber threats out there every day. So protecting yourself isn't a one-time job, it's an ongoing need. Now is the time to make sure that you have the right plan in place. Don't wait.
Norton 360 with LifeLock. Use promo code GET25 to save 25% off your first year and get a free shredder with annual membership. Call now to start your membership or visit lifelock.com/TV.
All right, an update right now on the coronavirus outbreak in America. The CDC is recommending that people over the age of 60 or anyone who has a chronic medical condition buckle down for a lengthy stay at home. Joining us right now to talk more about it is Dr. Marty Makary. He is professor with Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. He's also the author of The Price We Pay, What Broke American Healthcare and How to Fix It. Dr. Makary, thank you for being with us today. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Becky.
I know you've been worried about the amount of misinformation that's out there because we've been interviewing people who are not doctors, who do not look at social policy. You are, so why don't I hand the reins over to you? What is happening right now? What should we be doing?
Yeah, I am concerned about what we saw over the weekend on cable news. A lot of legacy pundits talking about their opinions. Look, we've got some data now that we've got to act on. We need to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And what we know is that China and Iran have not been straightforward. Those numbers are not reliable. We have talked to doctors over there, and they say their hospitals have been overrun. But Italy and South Korea have been very transparent. And what we're seeing over there right now is that they've taken drastic measures, and even with that, the hospitals in northern Italy right now are overrun. We've seen a doubling of cases and deaths nearly every 1 to 3 days. And although we've been under testing, we've seen a tenfold increase in the last 10 days. And that's not even really, with testing everybody. So, look, I don't like the idea of talking about contingency plans, but we've got to start making these plans. We've got to get restaurants to get into the delivery business right now. We've got to brace for a 3-month problem because you know what? What happened in Wuhan could happen here. Why do we think otherwise?
So you think, are we not doing enough at this point in terms of making sure schools are closed, making sure people that they're working from home, not going to work? What's your thought?
Yeah, we need to tell people right now to stop all non-essential travel. I feel strongly about that. Simply saying that high-risk people should not take cruises is not enough. I mean, well, look, we've got, Becky, 100,000 ICU beds in the United States that they operate at full capacity or near full capacity. If we get 200,000 critical care cases, as I outlined today in MedPage Today, we're going to be overrun. Seattle hospitals are on the brink of being overrun. So we need to do more. Look, the American immune system is not stronger than the Chinese immune system. I think this idea of American exceptionalism is crossing over into some arrogance when it comes to viruses. Viruses don't care about politics. They don't care about location.
So, Doctor, just help us understand this, because I think a lot of people this morning, I mean, from a markets perspective, obviously things are coming back. Part of that's just a rebound story, but part of it's people looking at what's taking place in China, what's taking place in South Korea, and there's a view that some of that has turned a little bit. Do you think that's a fair model for what could happen in the United States or not, given the steps that they took relative to the steps that we have taken thus far?
Well, first of all, China has not reopened their schools. And one thing we know about China is they always project strength. I mean, look at what happened in Wuhan. They had 19 field hospitals and they were overrun. Why do we think we're going to be fine without any increased capacity? The American Hospital Association is saying we need to expand and get ready and build out. We need to staff up. So look at South Korea, and you may see one of the most model public health responses out there, right? Early testing, early tracing. Everyone who wanted a test got a test early. I mean, we might be a little bit behind the 8 ball, but there's time to prepare. And if we're looking at what's happening in Italy, sure, those hospitals are getting overrun, but they're taking drastic measures. And also, it's too early to conclude the trajectory. But why don't we bank on the worst possible scenario? That is the same trajectory in China happening here.
But just to be clear, you're talking about people outside of the most affected areas, let's say Seattle and maybe Westchester County. You're talking about people outside of that, changing their daily routines and not traveling if it's not essential?
Yes, I'm talking about working from home. I'm talking about abandoning this idea that this virus is contained. And I think because, look, it is very low risk for young, healthy people. And I think we look at people like ourselves and say, hey, this doesn't seem like a big deal. But the reality is we're carriers for those at high risk. We're carriers for older folks, people at organ transplants, lung disease, people with disabilities. We've got to think about the overall possible scenarios here. And they range from a really bad flu season to very grim. That is Dr. Lipsitz's projection from Harvard. 40% of the population could get this.
Dr. McCary, I want to thank you for your time. We will have you back. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Coming up, a lot more on Squawk. 2 big hours ahead. Big market swings leaving some investors looking for safe havens. We'll talk to a black swan investor for his picks on how to withstand market events. Squawk returns right after this.
Plan to retire, plan to live. An annuity helps cover your essential monthly expenses, so you're free to live the life you want. Find out how an annuity can give you lifetime income at protectedincome.org.
When I lost my sight, my biggest fear was losing my independence. So I've spent my life developing technology to help the visually impaired.
We are so good.
We built a guide that uses IBM Watson.
The library is in 40 meters.
To help the blind. It is already working in cities like Tokyo.
Your gate is in 50 meters on the right.
My dream is to help millions more people like me.
When it's time to sell your home, there's a lot of money on the line. How can you trust your real estate agent will get it right? There's good news. With HomeLight, you can compare actual performance data on thousands of agents near you, so you know who sells quickly, who sells for the best price. We'll match you with the perfect agent for your needs. Best of all, it's free. Sell your home for more money. Go to HomeLight.com today.
When we started our business, we were paying like an arm and a leg for the postage. I remember setting up ShipStation. I think it was just like 1 or 2 clicks. Everything was up and running. I was printing out labels and saving money.
ShipStation saves us so much time. It makes it really easy and seamless. Pick an order, print everything you need, slap the label onto the box, and it's ready to go.
Our cost for shipping, like, we're cut in half, just like that.
ShipStation, the #1 choice of online sellers. Go to shipstation.com/TV and get 2 months free.
I don't like the idea of my broker taking the opposite side of my orders, or selling my orders to high-frequency traders. So I use IBKR Pro. But if you're not sure about your decision, you can switch to IBKR Lite and pay 0 commissions with no minimums and no inactivity fees. And then switch again and again. The broker trusted by professional investors is now available for free with IBKR Lite. Start trading today at IBKR.com.
Stocks crater. With oil price wars and the coronavirus fueling recession fears, how to stay steady during uncharted times. Squawk on the Street, 9 a.m. Eastern. Watch or listen live on the CNBC app.
Stocks coming off their worst day since the financial crisis. The Dow falling more than 7% in yesterday's trading. Today, a Tuesday turnaround. The latest on the market whipsaw and what it means for your investments is straight ahead.
On lockdown, Italy taking drastic steps to help stem the spread of the coronavirus. Meanwhile, the numbers rising in the United States. The latest on the economic impact is coming up.
In major economic steps, what the White House is planning to prevent the U.S. economy from sinking into recession as the second hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning. Welcome back to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin along with Becky Quick and Joe Kernan in studio for the hour. Joe Terranova of Virtus Investment Partners. U.S. equity futures at this hour. Let's show you because you were just mentioning we're now limit up.
We got close to it. We touched it. We touched it. 28.79, 5% threshold for the mini S&P. We got there. We touched it. We've backed
been
off
up
a
about
little bit.
4.5% for the last hour or so, but the gains